Welcome to the Tired Thinker, where reality branches like roots beneath the surface of what we call here. And every choice you did or didn't make continues somewhere you can almost feel, but never quite touch. Tonight's curiosity belongs to the many worlds, to the vast thicket of universes layered one breath apart from this one. A multiverse where every possibility is not discarded or forgotten, but lived. Where every hesitation, every yes, every no, every silence becomes a doorway. We ask, if every outcome of every moment unfolds in a different world, which one is this? Are you the version of you who chose boldly, or the one who blinked? Does another you look back across the veil and wonder the same? These aren't puzzles to solve, but landscapes to wander, to sense the shimmer of the you who stayed, the you who left, the you who never had to choose. So tonight, we'll walk along the branching paths, the infinite garden where each step is both taken and not taken. No panic, just the soft awe of recognizing that you are already plural. Before we step into the garden, where are you tuning in from in this reality? What time, what city, what version of your life is breathing right now? And if these multiverse musings find a home in you, I'd be grateful if you liked or subscribed, so more wandering minds can drift into the wonder of worlds layered just beyond the one we name real. Now, let's begin. Imagine standing in a hallway with no clear end. The walls are plain. The floor is familiar. It feels like any other hallway you have walked. Yet every time you move, the hallway changes. It branches. It divides. It responds to you. Not in a magical way, but in a way that follows a quiet rule of the universe. Every decision is a doorway. This idea is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, but we will not need formulas to talk about it. Picture your life as a long path. You make choices every day. Some are small, what to eat, what road to take, who to call. Some are large, who to trust, what to believe, whether to leave or stay. You usually think of these choices as points on one timeline. You choose one thing, and the rest becomes memory or imagination. But think of each decision as opening two corridors. In one corridor, you chose to speak. In another corridor, you stayed silent. In one corridor, you turned right. In another, you turned left. Both corridors exist. Both continue. Both contain a version of you who keeps going. You can think of this as a branching path, a tree with many limbs, but a tree has a center point at the trunk. In many worlds, there is no trunk. There is only branching. The branching may have begun long before you were aware of it. Consider a simple scene. You are at a cafe. You can order tea or coffee. You choose tea. The scene continues. You drink it. You move on with your day. But in another corridor, you choose coffee. That version of you sits at another table. That person may linger longer. That person may overhear a conversation. That person may meet a stranger who changes the shape of their life. Not because the choice was important, but because life reacts to motion. This may sound strange. It is easy to think that the version of you who never ordered the coffee does not matter. Yet the multiverse picture suggests that version is just as real, only separated by a distance you cannot measure with steps. The distance is in the shape of reality, a split that does not close. Now imagine a larger moment. You stand in a doorway at the end of a long year. You have endured things that shaped your voice. You consider leaving the city you have always known. In one corridor, you sign a lease somewhere new. In another, you remain. Your reasons feel solid in both cases. Both futures feel possible. Both futures are real in the structure of many worlds. The you who left may learn new habits and speak with a different pace. The you who stayed might hold on to older patterns. Neither is more correct. Both unfold with weight. If this sounds heavy, hold a simple thought. You do not need to track every corridor. You do not need to know every version of yourself. You only need to know that the world is larger than the single path in front of your eyes. Think about memory. You sometimes remember something that never happened here. You recall a conversation that did not take place. You feel a connection to a person you have not met. You experience déjà vu when nothing is familiar. Some people explain these moments as mistakes in your brain, and that is a reasonable explanation. Your brain is complex, and it fills gaps to make sense of experience. Yet there is another interpretation that sits in many worlds. You may be sensing a corridor next to yours. You may be feeling the echo of an event that unfolded in another version of your life. This does not require belief. It is a way to frame experience. It gives space for the parts of life that do not fit the straight line story. Now consider responsibility. If every choice creates a corridor, does that mean every decision is equal? Not exactly. You still choose. You still live the consequences of the corridor you walk. If you choose to speak harshly, you deal with the result of strain. If you choose to listen, you deal with the result of connection. The existence of other corridors does not remove the weight of this one. It only expands the field of what is possible. Think of a map that does not show only one road from one town to another. A map shows every path that could get you there. You still walk one road at a time, but knowing the others exist changes how you understand where you are. Now picture two versions of you facing each other, not physically, not through mirrors, but in imagination informed by physics. One version of you has confidence in a skill you fear to learn in this corridor. That version of you exists because somewhere you practiced a bit more, or you had one teacher instead of another, or you took a moment to slow down when frustration rose. That version is not a fantasy. It is a possible path that branched from a moment where you hesitated here. This version is not better. It simply traveled differently. When you think about growth, you often imagine becoming someone you are not yet. Many worlds suggests you already are that person in some corridor. You are also the version who did not try. You carry both shapes inside you as possibilities. You do not need to chase either. You only need to choose where you stand now. In this corridor, you may feel regret. You may think of something you did or did not do. In many worlds, regret softens. The thing you did not do was done by another you. The life you did not live is being lived somewhere. This does not erase grief. It does not fix harm, but it changes the meaning of loss. The lost path did not vanish. It continued. You just are not walking it here. The idea can be grounding. It can remove the pressure to choose perfectly. There is no perfect path, only the path you are currently walking, and the awareness that other versions of you continue elsewhere. Now imagine the hallway again. You are standing at a point where the corridor branches. The door that opens everywhere is not a single portal. It is the moment before a decision. It is the breath before the step. You do not need to see all the corridors. You only need to understand that each step carries possibility. The door opens every time you choose. The world unfolds in response. The universe branches, and you continue walking. There are moments when you stop and feel something you can't name. It might happen while washing dishes, or crossing a parking lot, or waking up on a quiet morning. The feeling is not fear. It is not exactly regret. It is more like a a sense of something just out of view, a life you did not live. You know what you have done. You know the choices that shaped your days, yet you also know there were other routes, other directions, other versions of you who stood at the same crossroads and stepped differently. These versions do not vanish. They sit in the structure of what could have been. You feel them sometimes, like a faint sound in another room, a voice that does not speak words but feels familiar. This is the echo of unlived lives. To understand it, you do not need to accept any one theory of reality. The idea shows up both in science and in psychology. In the many worlds' interpretation of physics, every choice causes a branching path. Each path continues. Each path contains a version of you. In psychology, there is the concept of the possible self. These are the selves you could have become. The mind stores them as quiet shapes that influence mood and identity. Either way, the effect is the same. You carry more than your single story. Imagine you once thought of moving to another city. You pictured a small apartment, a neighborhood you would learn street by street. You imagined a routine that did not yet exist. For days or weeks, the idea lived with you. You almost did it, but you did not. You stayed. You kept your old patterns. The version of you who moved is not here. Yet sometimes you can feel them. You might think about them when you see a movie set in that city, or when you walk past a travel poster. You feel something shift inside, a pull, not sadness, but recognition. That feeling is the echo. Or think of someone you once loved but did not choose. You reached a point where the future could have gone two ways. You chose the one that made sense at the time. Maybe you had reasons that were clear. Maybe the moment passed before you even knew you were choosing. Now, years later, you do not want to return to that person. You do not miss them in a storybook way. Yet you feel something when their name comes to mind. Not longing, but awareness. A life unfolded without you. A version of you stayed. A version of you left. The echo is not a mistake. It is a reminder that you are made of possibilities. Some people carry these echoes as regret. They think of what might have been and call it failure. But regret is only one frame. The echo itself is neutral. It does not accuse. It does not blame. It simply exists. It is the shape of the mind, remembering that life could have been different. Sometimes the echo appears as confusion. You stand in your own home and feel like you are visiting. You look at your reflection and feel like you recognize yourself, but not fully. This is not crisis. It is the mind adjusting to being oneself out of many possible selves. When you choose, you narrow your path. The narrowing feels real. The echo is the awareness of all that did not narrow. People often feel this most strongly in early adulthood and midlife, but it can happen at any age. A teenager can feel it when they drop a hobby that once defined them. A retired person can feel it when they realize they could have taken a different job decades earlier. The echo does not judge time. It is timeless. It holds every path that forked and continued. To work with the echo, you can observe it rather than resist it. For example, when you feel the pull toward the version of you who moved away, ask, what about that life calls to me? Is it the location, the independence, the quiet, the challenge? The answer can tell you something about what matters to you now. The unlived life is not only a memory, it is a signal. Or when you think of the person you did not stay with, ask, what part of me lived in that connection? Did I feel seen? Did I feel young? Did I feel unknown in a way that woke something in me? Those qualities do not belong only to the past. They are traits you may still need. The unlived life shows you what you value, even if the form has changed. People sometimes believe they must accept their life as it is and ignore all other possibilities. But ignoring the echo does not make it disappear. It only drives it underground, where it may turn into restlessness or quiet sadness that has no clear source. When you allow the echo to speak, it does not overwhelm your life. It gives shape to what you care about. There is another side to the echo. It is not only about what you did not do. It also comes from what you did do. You might feel the echo when you think of the version of you who did not go through a certain difficulty, the version who did not experience loss, the version who did not break, the version who was not changed. This is not about wishing pain away. It is simply acknowledging that you contain histories that could have been softer. The echo here can feel heavier. It can show up as a moment where you sit in silence and feel older than your age. The echo reminds you that you have lived. You are not the simplest version of yourself. The echo can also feel like déjà vu, a memory of something that did not happen, a sense of having lived another sequence of events. Some explain this through the brain's attempt to organize experience. That explanation is reasonable, but the echo interpretation offers a different view. You may be remembering a scene from a corridor you did not take in this path. The memory arrives without details, only tone, only atmosphere. It is not evidence, but it is familiar. There is one more form of the echo. It happens when you meet someone and feel that you already know them. The connection does not make sense in the linear story of your life. You have no shared past, yet the recognition is clear. In another version of your life, you might have known them deeply. That connection does not require you to pursue anything. You can simply acknowledge it. The echo does not demand action. It asks for awareness. When you feel the weight of the selves you did not become, you are not lost. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are standing in the only place a person ever stands, at the edge of now, carrying every possibility that shaped you. The echo is not the past. It is the space of what might have been, living inside what is. It is a companion, a quiet one, a patient one. It stays with you, not to haunt you, but to remind you that your life has depth. Not all of it has to be lived to be real. Picture a path in a field. The ground is level. The grass is short. There is nothing remarkable about the path until you reach a place where it splits. One branch goes left, one branch goes right. You stand there for a moment. You notice the space between choosing and moving. You might tell yourself, this is an ordinary moment. You will pick one direction and continue. Yet, this moment holds more than one road. It holds every road. We rarely notice how many of these branching points we face. Most seem small. Whether we answer a text, whether we wait 5 minutes or step outside now, whether we speak or remain quiet, we think of these as minor shifts. We assume life moves in one line. But the many worlds view suggests that each choice is a fork, a division, a moment where the world grows, a garden of possible futures. You do not see this garden with your eyes. You see only the path you walk. But imagine for a moment that every decision you make grows like a stem dividing into two. Then those two stems divide again, then again. Soon the garden is too large to picture, and yet you move through it one step at a time, making turns without always knowing the shape of the whole. To understand how this works in daily life, think of a morning. You wake up. You consider hitting the snooze button. In one path, you do. You sleep 10 more minutes. In another path, you get up on the first ring. These are small differences, but they lead to more differences. In one version, you leave home 2 minutes later and catch a different bus. On that bus, someone near you speaks with a tone that changes your mood. Or you hear music you have not heard before. Or you see someone who reminds you of a past moment. Each of these influences the next decision you make. In the other version, you left on time. You had a quiet trip. You arrived without distraction. Your day unfolds with a different tone. These are not dramatic changes, yet the path bends. The garden expands. Now consider a larger moment. You receive a job offer. One part of you wants to accept. Another part hesitates. You weigh your options. You talk with friends or family. You list out reasons. You make a choice. The path you walk continues. The other path continues as well, but not here. Somewhere else, a version of you accepted the job. That version sits in a different office. That version learns different lessons. That version meets different people. You carry both paths in the structure of your mind, even though you only walk one. The garden grows whether you think about it or not. This idea may feel abstract, so let us bring it closer. Think about the moment you first realized something important about yourself. Maybe it was a hobby that fit your hands and your mind, or a person who understood you, or a belief that settled into your life quietly. That moment was a fork. Before it, your life pointed in one direction. After it, the direction changed. If you had not recognized it then, perhaps you would have recognized it later, or perhaps that part of you would have grown differently. In the garden image, that moment is like sunlight falling on one branch, but not another. The branch exposed to light grows. The branch in shade grows too, but slower, not worse, just different. The many worlds interpretation does not ask you to believe that you can visit these paths. It does not ask you to look for portals. It simply describes how reality could hold more than one outcome at once. Your lived experience supports this idea in subtle ways. For example, sometimes you sense that another version of you might have handled a situation differently. You notice this without judgment. You may say to yourself, "I could have spoken up there," or "I could have walked away instead." When you think this, you are seeing the garden. You see the moment where the path split. You do not have to think about this as regret. It is a recognition of possibility. The version of you who spoke up exists as potential. The version of you who held silence exists as reality, and both versions tell you something about your values. Take a familiar experience. Someone asks you a question that matters. You feel a pull to answer honestly. Yet you worry about the effects of honesty, so you hesitate. In one branch, you answer with your whole truth. In another, you soften your response. Both choices shape the relationship. Both choices shape how you see yourself. This is where the idea of the garden becomes helpful. The garden shows that your identity is not fixed. It grows. It branches. You are not a single self. You are a network of possible selves shaped by the choices you keep and the choices you set aside. Some people feel overwhelmed by choice. They feel pressure to pick the perfect path. But the garden shows that perfection is not required. You do not need to choose the best possible path. You only need to choose the next step. The garden will continue to grow. There is another aspect worth exploring. Sometimes you look back and see a moment where your life could have changed in a clear way. A conversation you did not have, a risk you did not take, a door you walked past. You may feel the weight of that moment, not because you failed, but because you can feel the branch that grew in another direction. You might think of a time you did not apply for something you wanted, a school, a job, a chance. You imagined your life on the other side of that decision. You might still imagine it. The mind keeps track of those paths. They do not disappear. They become reference points. You measure who you are now against who you might have been. There is no need to treat these alternate lives as burdens. You can treat them as insight. When you feel drawn toward the path not taken, you can examine what the draw means. Maybe it means you want change now. Maybe it means you value something you have been ignoring. The unlived path can inform the lived one. The garden also teaches patience. At times, life may feel narrow. You may feel that your choices are limited or fixed. But if you look closely, you can see the small forks. A conversation you could start, a routine you could adjust, a piece of time you could reclaim. These small changes can lead to larger shifts. The garden does not grow by leaps. It grows by quiet branching. To see the garden clearly, you do not need special effort. You only need attention. Notice the moment before you act. Notice the feeling that rises when you consider two options. Notice when you move toward ease and when you move toward challenge. These are forks. They happen every day. You cannot stand on every branch, but you can understand that the world contains them. When you know the garden exists, choice becomes less about pressure and more about direction. You walk. The garden grows. The branches expand beyond what you can see. You are always in the garden. You have always been in it. The forking moments are not outside your life. They are your life. There are moments when you look at your reflection and something feels slightly off. You recognize your face. You know the lines, the shape, the angle of the jaw. Yet the image feels unfamiliar for a second, as if someone is looking back who is close to you, but not exactly you. You blink and the feeling passes. You call it tiredness or distraction. But there is another way to understand it. You may be brushing up against the version of you who made a different choice, an alternate self shaped by a different path. The many worlds view suggests that every decision splits reality. When you choose one thing, another version of you chooses the opposite. These versions do not vanish. They continue. They grow. They live out the futures you didn't. The mirror that doesn't match is not a glass reflection. It is the recognition that the self you see is just one branch of many. To understand this, start with a simple example. Imagine you were offered a chance to move to another city. You thought about it for weeks. You pictured the new streets. You pictured your life there. Then you stayed where you were. Life continued. But somewhere in the structure of possibility, another you moved. That version learned new routes and met new faces. That version formed habits that never formed here. You may feel that version sometimes, not as fantasy, but as a faint internal presence. You might walk down a street in your own city and suddenly imagine a street you've never seen. You might feel a sense of recognition about a neighborhood you've never lived in. That feeling is not random. It can be the mind sensing the shape of the path you did not take. Or consider a relationship that ended before it fully formed. You might still think about the version of yourself who stayed. You might imagine your voice sounding different. You might imagine the small domestic routines that never unfolded. You might picture arguments too. You are not romanticizing. You are observing an alternate pattern of growth. The alternate self is not perfect. They are not better or wiser. They simply developed from different inputs. The shape of a person comes from repetition. What you do every day becomes your character. So when you chose one path, you repeated one pattern. When the alternate you chose another, their pattern changed. Over time, the difference becomes large. Now imagine meeting that alternate version of yourself, not in a physical room, but as an internal encounter. This meeting can happen in subtle ways. You might experience it when you hear yourself speak and realize you could have spoken differently. You might recognize it when you respond to someone with patience and feel the version of you who would have reacted with anger. Both versions exist in you, one expressed and one unexpressed. The mirror that doesn't match is the moment you notice that the unexpressed version has shape and weight. This can happen in times of change. For example, if you consider changing careers, you may notice two clear versions of yourself. One remains in your current work, one leaves. Both seem real. You might even feel like you are watching two lives unfold in your mind at once. The one you choose becomes your visible self. The other becomes a quiet presence, stored as possibility. This presence can create a sense of tension. It is not conflict. It is awareness. It is the recognition that who you are is not fixed. You could be someone else, and the distance between these selves is not as large as it seems. Sometimes the alternate self appears as a memory that does not belong to your current life. This can happen during quiet moments. You might recall what feels like a conversation you never actually had, or a decision you never made, or a scene in a city you have never visited. The memory does not come with details, only the sense of having lived something. Some people dismiss these moments. Others carry them privately. The many worlds picture gives language for them. The mind may retain faint traces of alternate experience. You may also meet the alternate self in dreams, not in symbolic or surreal form, but in ordinary scenes. You might dream you are living a slightly different version of your life. The same home, but arranged differently. The same job title, but with different work. The same partner, but with a different tone in the relationship. These dreams feel normal, almost boring. They feel like glimpses. You wake up with the sense that the dream was not fiction. It was just another corridor. Meeting the alternate self can also happen when someone from your past reaches out. Their presence can stir the version of you who... There are moments when you look at your reflection and something feels slightly off. You recognize your face. You know the lines, the shape, the angle of the jaw. Yet the image feels unfamiliar for a second, as if someone is looking back who is close to you, but not exactly you. You blink and the feeling passes. You call it tiredness or distraction. But there is another way to understand it. You may be brushing up against the version of you who made a different choice, an alternate self shaped by a different path. The many worlds view suggests that every decision splits reality. When you choose one thing, another version of you chooses the opposite. These versions do not vanish. They continue. They grow. They live out the futures you didn't. The mirror that doesn't match is not a glass reflection. It is the recognition that the self you see is just one branch of many. To understand this, start with a simple example. Imagine you were offered a chance to move to another city. You thought about it for weeks. You pictured the new streets. You pictured your life there. Then you stayed where you were. Life continued. But somewhere in the structure of possibility, another you moved. That version learned new routes and met new faces. That version formed habits that never formed here. You may feel that version sometimes, not as fantasy, but as a faint internal presence. You might walk down a street in your own city and suddenly imagine a street you've never seen. You might feel a sense of recognition about a neighborhood you've never lived in. That feeling is not random. It can be the mind sensing the shape of the path you did not take. Or consider a relationship that ended before it fully formed. You might still think about the version of yourself who stayed. You might imagine your voice sounding different. You might imagine the small domestic routines that never unfolded. You might picture arguments too. You are not romanticizing. You are observing an alternate pattern of growth. The alternate self is not perfect. They are not better or wiser. They simply developed from different inputs. The shape of a person comes from repetition. What you do every day. There are moments when you step into a place you have never seen, and yet you feel you have been there before. The shape of the room, the angle of the light, the sound of a distant conversation. It all feels familiar. Not familiar like memory, where you can recall what happened. Familiar like something deeper, where recognition arrives without a story attached. You stand there and feel the moment twice. Once in the present, and once from somewhere that does not fit into your known life. This is the kind of déjà vu that feels like waking up in a world that isn't quite the one you left. Some déjà vu can be explained by how the brain stores and retrieves information. A signal may move through the brain in a way that creates a sense of repetition. That explanation is simple and reliable. But there is another way to consider the feeling, one that comes from the idea of multiple worlds. According to the many worlds interpretation, every moment branches into more than one version of reality. Each decision or event leads to different outcomes, and those outcomes continue in their own paths. So when you feel déjà vu, especially a deep, unexplainable kind, you may be brushing against a version of your life that unfolded differently. Think of it this way. If there are countless versions of you walking countless paths, then sometimes the edges of those paths might come close. Not to merge, not to overlap, but to echo. A faint impression from another branch may show up in your awareness. You cannot see the other world. You cannot step into it. But you feel the trace of it. Consider a moment where déjà vu arrives without warning. You are in a supermarket. You reach for an item on a shelf. Your hand moves in a way that feels rehearsed, though you have never done this exact motion in this exact place. You inhale and feel certainty, as though the scene has occurred before, but you cannot place when or where. There is no memory to support the feeling. The sense fades after a few seconds, and everything feels normal again. Yet the moment stays with you. In another version of your life, one that branched from a small decision, you may have stood in this same posture. You may have had this conversation. You may have followed the same thought sequence. That scene continues in its own direction. You feel the echo of it now. This explanation does not reject the neuroscience explanation. It simply expands the frame. The brain may recall patterns from other branches of your life, not only from your direct past. Another example may come from a dream. You dream you are in a house. The house feels familiar in the dream, even though you have never been there in waking life. You know where the hallways lead. You know where the windows are. You know the feeling of the air. When you wake, you cannot explain the familiarity. You have the sense that the dream was not symbolic or strange. It felt like memory. This kind of dream may be a glimpse into a version of your life that continues in another branch of the multiverse. Not as fantasy, but as lived experience in another path. Your mind may sometimes shift into that corridor while you sleep, because the boundaries between branches are thin when you are not actively holding the structure of your current identity. This does not mean that dreams are portals. It does not mean you are visiting another world. It means your mind may be capable of perceiving the structure of your own possible lives. You do not need to do anything with this perception. You simply notice it. Déjà vu can also appear when you meet someone for the first time and feel that you already know them. You recognize their speech pattern. You anticipate their humor. You sense comfort that does not come from shared history. This familiarity may come from another version of your life where you did know them. Perhaps you met them in a different place, in a different timeline, shaped by a different choice you once made. The connection feels natural because somewhere it was. This does not require belief in fate or destiny. It does not require romanticizing the meeting. It simply acknowledges that your life is not a single thread. The version of you standing here carries echoes of the versions of you elsewhere. Sometimes déjà vu brings a feeling of being slightly outside your life. You look around and everything appears normal, yet something feels shifted. You feel like you woke up in a world that is almost the same as the one you remember. The difference is small, a tone, a detail, the way someone says your name. This is not a sign of confusion. It is awareness. You may have made a decision recently that shifted your trajectory in a noticeable way. Your mind is adjusting to the difference. You feel the contrast between the old branch and the new one. Imagine a path in front of you that splits. Before the split, everything felt linear. After the split, things feel slightly unfamiliar. You recognize your life, but the atmosphere has changed. That change is the moment your world branched. Déjà vu appears when the mind aligns itself with the new direction, while still remembering the shape of the old. You might also notice this feeling during transitions. When you move, when you end something, when you begin something. These are moments where you become aware of the branching more clearly. The familiar world loosens. The new world has not fully formed. The mind notices the gap and tries to stabilize your sense of self. Déjà vu can be part of that stabilization. None of this requires active interpretation. You do not need to search for meaning in every déjà vu. You simply allow the awareness to be part of how you understand yourself. When déjà vu arrives, you can observe it without explanation or reaction. You can recognize that you are experiencing the structure of your life, the branching nature of decisions. In a felt way, the sense of waking up in other worlds may feel strange, but it does not need to be unsettling. It is a reminder that your life is shaped by choice, and that choice carries weight. The paths you walk are real. The paths you do not walk are real in another sense. You sense them sometimes. You feel their presence. You keep moving. Sometimes you notice the same pattern appearing in your life more than once. A familiar theme in relationships. A decision you face again, even though the situation looks different. A specific struggle or lesson that returns. You might think you're simply repeating old habits. That is often true. But there is another way to understand these repetitions. If reality branches each time you make a choice, then there are many versions of you facing similar questions in different worlds. The pattern may not only belong to this timeline, it may be part of who you are across many of them. The idea is that the universe, or more precisely, the structure of your possible lives, holds certain shapes. These shapes show up again and again, not because you fail to change, but because some themes are part of your identity across realities. To make this concrete, imagine someone who often finds themselves in situations where they care deeply for others, but struggle to express their own needs. In this world, they might learn to speak up slowly in small steps. But in another branch of the multiverse, they may avoid connection to avoid the discomfort. And in another, they may become someone who speaks bluntly to prevent misunderstanding. Each version responds differently, but the core theme is the same: the balance between care and self-expression. The universe holds this theme like a pattern in fabric. The design appears in every thread. The variations are many, but the underlying shape remains. Now consider a different example. Think of a moment where you feel drawn to a certain creative interest, even if you do not pursue it fully. You might feel pulled toward music, painting, writing, building things, or working with your hands. You may not know where the pull comes from. It feels instinctive. It appears even if your daily life does not include it. You may put it aside, yet it returns. It returns in small bursts. It returns when you are tired or quiet. It returns when you imagine who you could have been. This pull may exist because in other branches of your life, you did pursue it. The self who followed that path continues to exist in another version of the world. The sense of return is not nostalgia, it is recognition. Part of you remembers what you are capable of in another life. The pattern repeats across dimensions. Sometimes you meet someone and feel an instant connection. Not romantic, necessarily, more like recognition. You understand each other with little effort. You do not need to explain your humor or your pace of thought. The relationship feels familiar. You might say, it feels like I already knew you. Many Worlds offers a simple explanation. Maybe in another branch of your life, you did. The connection is not imagined. It is experienced across versions of reality. This does not mean every strong connection is a continuation of something from another world. But the familiarity you feel can be understood as part of a pattern that repeats across possibilities. Patterns also show up in how you respond to change. Some people move through change with caution. Others move quickly. Others resist change until it is forced. These responses often feel like personality, but personality can be shaped by the accumulation of many branching paths. If in many versions of your life you learned caution, then caution may be the default pattern that shows up here. If in many versions you learn to adapt, adaptability will feel natural. You may not notice these patterns directly, but you can feel them as tendencies. The universe remembers, not in the sense of a conscious memory, but in the structure of how your many lives echo each other. There are moments when you make a decision and feel as if you have made it before, even though you have not. You might face a choice and know your answer without needing to think. The knowledge feels familiar. It arrives fully formed. Some call this intuition. Intuition is a real mental process. It is the result of experience your mind has stored. But if experience is wider than one timeline, intuition may also draw on paths you have walked elsewhere. This is not magic. It is pattern recognition spread across possibilities. There are also moments that feel like reminders. You may see a symbol, a color, a phrase, a scene, and it brings up a calm sense of knowing. You cannot explain why. It is not emotional in a dramatic way. It is steady. It feels like something inside you nods. Some call this resonance. In the many worlds picture, resonance may be the alignment of several versions of you encountering similar meaning. Think of it like tuning forks. When one fork vibrates, another nearby fork that shares the same frequency begins to vibrate too. You feel resonance when the version of you here vibrates at the same frequency as the version of you elsewhere. You may notice that certain life lessons return until they are integrated. The same dynamic may appear with different people in different places. The details change, the core remains. When this happens, it does not mean you failed. It means the pattern holds significance across many branches. The lesson is not just for this you. It belongs to the larger expression of who you are in many dimensions. This idea can bring a sense of steadiness. If your life repeats certain patterns, you are not being tested or punished. You are participating in a theme that runs through many versions of you. The work is not to escape the pattern, but to understand it. When you notice repetition, you can ask a simple question. What is the shape of this pattern? Not why it happens, not what you should have done, just the shape. The shape may show you something about the kind of person you are across worlds. The universe remembers not through memory, but through structure. Your life in this world and others grows like branches from the same root. The root is your identity. The branches are your choices. The leaves are your moments of recognition. You do not need to see the whole tree to know it is there. There are times when you feel the presence of a choice you did not make. You sense it like a set of footprints beside your own, close but not touching. You cannot see the traveler who left them, and yet you know they walked a path that almost became yours. This is the idea of the parallel version of yourself, the version who made the other decision, took the other chance, or stepped away when you stepped forward. You do not see that version, but you feel them in small moments. Their path runs next to yours, close enough that you can sense the movement, even if you cannot see the form. To understand this, picture a field covered in new snow. You walk across it. Your steps leave a clean line, a personal history. But imagine there's another line of footprints just to the side. The steps match your rhythm. The distance is consistent. The prints are shaped like yours, and yet they are not yours. These prints belong to another traveler who is you, in another branch of reality, a version shaped by a different choice. In daily life, you encounter these footprints in ways that are simple but clear. You may be sitting somewhere and think, I was almost not here. You may look at your own life and feel the faint memory of a life you did not live. Not fantasy, not regret, recognition. Take a small example. You walk into a cafe, order your drink, and take a seat. Something about the moment feels familiar in a way that is hard to explain. You have never been here before, yet you feel as though you have. The angle of the window, the sound of the spoon against the cup, the voice of someone at the counter, all of it feels like part of your memory. The moment feels lived. This can be déjà vu, but it can also feel like noticing footprints beside your own. You may be feeling the trace of the version of you who did come here before. In another branch of your life where your timing was different and the path brought you here sooner. Now consider a larger example. Imagine you almost took a certain job. You interviewed, prepared, considered the move, then chose another direction. You live your current life. You work where you work. You have a rhythm now. But sometimes on a quiet afternoon, you think about that other job. You can almost feel the office. You can almost sense what your days would be like. You can picture the commute, the desk, the small routines. It feels real, even though you never lived it here. Those impressions are footprints. They come from the version of you who did take that job in another branch of your timeline. You do not see that person, but the life they live leaves marks you can feel. People often think these recognitions mean they are unsatisfied, but awareness is not the same as longing. You can feel the footprint of another life without wishing to walk it. The echo simply shows that your identity spans more than one path. You are not a single line through time. You are a collection of possible lives, each with its own weight. Sometimes the footprints feel closer. You notice yourself reacting to something in a way that surprises you. You speak with confidence you did not know you had. You act with patience that feels new. You solve a problem with ease. You might wonder where that version of yourself came from. You might think, I didn't know I could do that. But perhaps you did. Perhaps another version of you has practiced this skill many times in a different branch. You feel the benefit of their repetition, not through magic, but through the way the mind can hold unlived experience as potential. The traveler beside you teaches you without speaking. There are also times when you sense pain that does not belong to your life, a sadness with no clear source, a heaviness that arrives without context. People often call this mood. It may be that, but it may also be the trace of a version of you who faced a harder path. The footprint in the snow is deeper in their world, and you feel the impression of that weight here. This does not mean you must carry their burden. It only means that your possible selves are connected by more than imagination. You are part of a wide field of identity, not just one story. Relationships show footprints as well. You may meet someone and feel as though your lives have crossed before. The connection feels immediate. You understand each other in a way that doesn't require explanation. There may be no logical reason for this. Your histories do not overlap, yet the familiarity is deep. This can be read as chemistry, personality match, shared values, and those explanations are valid. But it may also be that in another branch of reality, you did share a life. You walked together there. That connection leaves footprints here. On the other side, some relationships feel tense without clear cause. You may meet someone and feel discomfort that has no source in this life. It may be that your paths diverged painfully somewhere else. The friction is a footprint too. You might ask what purpose these footprints serve. They act as quiet reminders. They show that your life is not one-dimensional. They show that choice has depth. They show that your identity has range. The unseen traveler is not someone separate from you. It is you, walking a parallel path, shaped by the choices you did not make here. You do not need to find them. You do not need to become them. You only need to recognize that their journey exists alongside your own. You walk through the snow. The path is yours, but the prints beside you, the ones just within awareness, show that your life is larger than the path you see. There are moments when you feel a pull in one direction without knowing why. You sense that you should wait, or you should move, or you should call someone, or you should walk away. The message arrives without explanation. You do not reason your way to it. You simply know. The knowing is quiet but steady. This is what we call intuition. It's not dramatic. It does not shout. It does not need to convince you. It speaks once and then waits. In ordinary terms, intuition is your mind drawing on patterns you have learned. Your brain stores far more information than you realize. It notices small details and uses them to form guidance. This is true and well supported. But there is another way to consider intuition that expands, not replaces, this explanation. If there are many versions of you living different paths in parallel worlds, then intuition may also be the signal from those other paths, a kind of communication between selves separated by choice. Imagine two rooms side by side. A wall stands between them. You cannot see through it, and you cannot step through it, but sound can travel faintly through the wall. You might not hear words, but you might hear rhythm, tone, or a single clear signal. In this image, each room is a reality. You live in one. Another version of you lives in the room beside it. The wall between you is the boundary between worlds. Intuition is the sound that travels through that boundary. Consider a moment when you almost made a decision that would have changed your life. You thought about accepting a job, moving to a new place, or starting a relationship. Something in you said, "Not yet." You could not explain it. There was no clear reason. You may have even felt foolish turning away. But later, the choice proved right. It is easy to say that you simply read the situation well. That is likely true, but it is also possible that the version of you who did make that decision in another branch learned something that flowed back to you as a quiet warning. This idea does not require belief in anything mystical. It sees intuition as pattern recognition that may span multiple versions of your life, not just the one you remember here. Now think of a moment when you felt drawn towards something without being able to explain the attraction. A hobby, a person, a field of study, a place. You felt as though you were returning to something, not discovering it for the first time. You might say you have always been that way, even if you cannot point to when it started. In another version of your life, that interest may have taken root fully. You lived it there, you developed it there. The feeling of familiarity here may be the echo of the skill and comfort that exist in that other path. Intuition can also appear during conversation. Someone asks you a question, and you answer faster than your thinking can explain. The words feel natural, as though you are repeating something you already learned. You may have learned it through experience in this world, but it may also be that another version of you learned it first, and the understanding rises here in a simplified form, not memory, pattern. Sometimes intuition arrives as a sudden sense of warning. You step into a situation that seems safe, but something in you says to leave. Not fear, awareness. In another branch, perhaps you saw the consequences of staying. That version of you carries the knowledge. The signal reaches you as instinct. This is not to say that every instinct is correct. Some instincts come from old fears. Some come from habits that no longer serve you. The skill is learning to tell the difference. The intuition that feels like interworld communication has a different tone. It does not rush. It does not pressure. It does not demand. It simply states itself. It feels calm. To understand this difference, think of two voices. One says, "If you do not act now, everything will fall apart." That voice is fear. The other says, "You know which direction is right." That voice is intuition. The second voice does not need to be loud because it does not argue. It offers clarity without force. There are people you meet who feel familiar immediately. You know their humor, their posture, their way of speaking. You feel like you have known them somewhere before. Another branch may hold the history that explains the familiarity. Intuition responds to this history. You sense the connection, even if it did not happen in this world. You may also feel an instant discomfort with someone you have just met. No event caused it, no words justified it, but the feeling is steady. The discomfort is not judgment, it is information. In another path, the relationship may have unfolded and ended in a way that shaped the signal you feel now. You cannot see that story, but you can feel the result. Intuition communicates through sensation, not reason. A tightening in the chest, a quiet lightness, a pull, a pause, a shift in breath. These are not dramatic signs. They are simple and physical. The body holds what the mind cannot articulate. Sometimes intuition guides you toward growth. You may feel drawn to try something new, even though it scares you. The fear is real, but the draw is stronger. In another branch, you have already taken this step. You have already become the version of yourself who can do this. The intuition you feel may come from the alignment between your path here and the path that already exists elsewhere. You are moving toward the version of you who has developed the strength you are reaching for now. The voice from the next reality over is not literal sound. It is direction. It is orientation. It is the feeling of this way compared to that way. You do not need to explain the voice. You only need to notice when it speaks calmly and clearly. The guidance it offers comes without urgency. You recognize it not by volume, but by steadiness. There are moments in life when you make a choice that changes your direction. You leave a job, a city, a relationship, a habit, or an identity that shaped you. You step away because staying was no longer possible, or no longer honest, or simply no longer who you were becoming. You carry your reasons with you. You explain them to yourself. You might explain them to others. You walk forward, but somewhere inside, there is a version of you who stayed. That version of you is not imaginary. It lives in the structure of possibility. When you chose one direction, another version of you followed the other. The multiverse idea suggests that every meaningful fork continues in both directions. Whether or not you think of it literally, you can feel the truth of it when you think about the life you did not choose. That life is not just an idea. It holds shape. It has seasons. It has texture. And the version of you who stayed can feel like someone watching from a window as you walk away. This quiet grief appears in subtle ways, not as regret, not as longing, but as a soft ache. The ache comes from knowing that a part of you cared for what you left behind. Even choices that are right can still hurt. Leaving does not erase attachment. Divergence does not erase history. Think of a relationship that ended before it could grow into something larger. You may know it was right to leave. You may understand that the future together would not have held what you needed. But there is a version of you who remained. That version keeps the memories of shared mornings, or shared laughter, or shared silence. That version is not trying to return. It is simply holding the emotional continuity of a story that did not finish in this timeline. When you feel a sudden wave of sadness that you cannot place, it may be the grief of that version of you. The grief is not asking to be fixed. It is asking to be acknowledged. Or think of a younger version of yourself who once believed strongly in a certain dream. Maybe it was a career. Maybe it was a way of living. Maybe it was a relationship with who you hoped to become. Eventually, you let that dream go. You adapted. You grew. Your life moved in a different direction. You might say you outgrew that dream. But the version of you who held it did not vanish. That version remains in the emotional attic of your identity. Sometimes you feel what they feel. The quiet grief of not becoming the person they imagined. This is not failure. It is divergence. Most people are taught to think that once a path is left behind, it should be forgotten. But forgetting is not how the mind works. We are shaped by the things we once wanted. We are shaped by the places we once belonged. We are shaped by the people we once tried to stay close to. The self who stayed holds those shapes. Imagine standing in a hallway. You choose a door and walk through it. The self who stays in the hallway does not disappear. They continue walking in another direction. If you listen closely, you may feel their presence as a faint hum, something like memory, but deeper than memory. Now consider a scenario where you left a friend group or community that once felt like home. You might have changed. They might have changed. The connection might have faded gently, not sharply. You moved on. Your life now may make sense, but sometimes you remember how the air felt in the places you once gathered. You feel a softness, not for the people themselves, but for the version of you who was known in that space. That version of you is still somewhere in the structure of possible selves. They remain in the echo of that world. When you feel the ache, you are not wanting to return. You are acknowledging that a part of you lived there. The quiet grief of divergence is not a sign of being divided. It is a sign of being layered. You contain many selves. The one who moved forward, the one who could not, the one who tried, the one who feared, the one who believed, the one who waited, the one who walked away. None of them are wrong. Sometimes you may feel a tension, as if there is a conversation happening inside you without words. One part says, "We made the right choice." Another part says, "I miss what we left." Both are true. The mind is capable of holding contradiction without collapse. The heart is too. If you picture the version of you who stayed, do so without judgment. Imagine them not as someone who failed, but as someone who continued a story that had meaning. They are not tracked. They are simply living the emotional line that branches from a different decision. In some moments, you may even feel the version of you who left watching the version who stayed. The doorway swings both ways. You may wonder how your life would have felt if you remained. You may sense the stability or the comfort that the other path might have offered. That is not longing. That is awareness. The quiet grief is gentle. It is not loud. It does not try to pull you back. It is simply the recognition that every choice creates distance. Distance from places you loved. Distance from people who shaped you. Distance from versions of yourself who once held the center. The self who watched you leave does not disappear. They walk their own path in the parallel snow of another world. And sometimes, when the day is quiet and your mind is unoccupied, you can feel them standing just beside you, still watching. Not to call you back, but to remind you that your life is wide and your history is alive in more than one direction. There are moments you barely notice when they happen. You reach for one item on a shelf instead of another. You pause before sending a message. You say yes. You say no. These moments pass without ceremony. You do not announce them. You do not mark them in your memory. Yet each one contains a point where reality could have unfolded in more than one direction. The many worlds interpretation suggests that every time a decision has more than one possible outcome, the universe branches. One branch follows the choice you made. Another follows the choice you did not. The branching does not require dramatic events. It does not require struggle or conflict. It happens in the small acts that shape the structure of daily life. To understand this, consider a simple morning. You wake up and think about reaching out to someone you have not spoken to in a long time. You think you should, then decide to wait. The moment passes. You move on with your day. In another branch of reality, you reached out. The conversation began. A connection was renewed. Something grew there. That version of your life continues on its own path. You live the version where you did not reach out. This does not mean you made a mistake. It means the world is not one straight line. It is a field of possible lives. Now think of a moment when you made a choice that felt small at the time, but later you saw how much it shaped your life. Perhaps you accepted a short-term job that influenced your direction. Perhaps you walked through a door that led to a chance meeting. Perhaps you chose to help someone, and that choice formed a bond that grew. In the moment, the choice felt ordinary, yet the path that followed was different from the path you would have walked otherwise. The cosmos split there, not with noise or force, but with a shift so fine you did not see it until later. People often think large life events define who they are, but the events are shaped by smaller choices made much earlier. The seed shapes the tree even when the seed looks inconsequential. The same is true for identity. The person you call you is shaped by a sequence of small branches, not sudden leaps. There is a version of you who turned left instead of right one day. A version who spoke when you stayed silent. A version who waited when you moved. A version who stayed home when you went out. These versions are not fantasies. They are expressions of the same potential, realized in different branches. You may feel the presence of these versions in faint moments. You sit somewhere unfamiliar and feel as though you have been there before. You hear a phrase and feel as though you said it once in a place you cannot name. You sense a memory without context. The feeling is not confusion. It is the mind brushing against another branch of its own existence. This idea can sound large, but its meaning is human. It speaks to the depth of choice, not pressure, but possibility. Consider someone who decides to learn a particular skill. At first, the choice is small. They practice for a few minutes. They repeat the practice the next day. Over time, the skill becomes part of their identity. The choice to practice or not practice that first day is a branching point. One branch contains a life shaped by that skill. Another contains a life shaped by something else. Both branches hold meaning, and neither cancels the other. When you look back on your life, you may see places where the path diverged. You may say, if I had done that, everything would have changed. You are not wrong, but everything did change. It changed in the direction you walked. The other direction is not gone. It is continuing elsewhere. The cosmos, in this sense, is not a vast empty space. It is a structure made of decisions and consequences. It is a network of branching paths. Each path contains a version of you, shaped by the choices in that world. Sometimes, you feel the weight of a decision long after you make it. You may feel grief for the version of your life that did not unfold. This grief is not regret, it is recognition. The self you could have been is still connected to you. You can feel their presence because divergence does not break relationship. It changes perspective. In moments of uncertainty, you might feel more than one possible direction inside you. It can feel like two voices, each pointing to a different future. The voices are not in conflict. They are expressions of two possible selves. The choice you make will form one branch. The other branch will continue elsewhere. The cosmos does not split with loud signals. It splits when you lift your hand. It splits when you answer a question. It splits when you move toward or away from a moment that matters. To see this clearly, think of a single conversation. You speak your truth, or you do not. You offer your feelings, or you hold them. You stay, or you step back. The difference between these outcomes can shape years. Yet the moment itself may last only seconds. Those seconds are the hinge of two worlds. We are taught to think of destiny as something large, but destiny forms in the smallest motions. A look, a breath, a hesitation, a step. The cosmos is not fractured by accident. It is shaped by every movement you make, not because you are being tested, not because the universe is fragile, but because your life is wide, and each path you could have walked is real in the structure of possibility. A single choice can change the shape of eternity, not through force, but through direction. Every moment you live is part of that unfolding. There are choices you made that shaped your life in ways you can point to and explain. There are others that passed quietly, almost unnoticed, but still shifted your path. For every decision you made, there were other options you did not take. Those options did not disappear. They continued as possible futures. In the many worlds view, they did more than continue as ideas. They became roads with their own momentum, traveled by versions of you who made the other choice. You do not see these roads. You do not walk them here. But you can feel them sometimes, as if something in you remembers a life you never lived. Think of a time you almost moved to another city. You looked at apartments. You pictured the streets. You imagined how you would introduce yourself to strangers. You may have spent weeks or months considering it. Then you stayed. The decision made sense. Your reasons were clear. Yet the life you imagined did not vanish when you chose to remain. You may still feel it sometimes when you hear the name of that city. Not longing, not regret, just a quiet awareness that a version of you walks those streets in another branch of reality. The unchosen road kept going. You may also feel this in relationships. A person came into your life and you felt something with them. Maybe timing was wrong. Maybe there were obstacles you could not move. Maybe the connection did not grow in this timeline. You moved forward. That was real and valid, but the connection you imagined did not collapse when the relationship ended. A version of you did stay. A version of them stayed as well. Their story continues somewhere else. You may feel it at unexpected times in stillness when your mind is relaxed. A soft remembrance of a future that unfolded without you here. This does not mean you are divided. It means you are complex. To understand this more clearly, imagine your life as a path through a wide landscape. You can only walk one direction at a time, but the landscape is not erased behind you. The paths you did not take are still present. They continue across fields you can sense, but not reach from where you stand. Sometimes you see traces of the unchosen path in your personality. You may have once been drawn toward a career or a passion you did not pursue. You may have set it aside because circumstances required something else. Yet when you see someone living the life you imagine you might have lived, something inside you responds. You feel recognition, not jealousy, not bitterness, recognition. A part of you knows how that life would feel because somewhere you live it. The unchosen roads keep going. There are also smaller moments where you notice this branching. You may be sitting with friends and suddenly feel like you are supposed to be somewhere else, doing something else. Not because you should leave, but because another version of you is, right now, living out another timeline with its own commitments and rhythms. The feeling lasts only a moment. Then you return to the present, but the awareness remains. You can also sense unchosen paths in the emotions that arrive without clear explanation. A sudden sadness that does not match your current day. A sudden warmth or pride with no obvious source. A quiet grief about something you cannot fully name. These emotions may be the echoes of versions of you experiencing something in their own timeline. Not memory, not imagination. Echo. Sometimes you may dream of a life that feels familiar, though it does not match your current one. The house is not yours, and yet you know where everything belongs. The people are not people you know here, yet you know them in the dream with certainty. The dream is calm, not strange. When you wake, you feel as though you stepped out of another room in the same building. That room continues existing even when you are not inside it. The unchosen roads keep going. This idea does not require you to believe in literal parallel worlds. You can also understand it as psychological truth. The self holds many possible selves inside it. The mind contains identities that did not grow into the main story. These identities do not disappear. They remain as quiet shapes. They influence how you respond to life. They appear in your preferences, your instincts, your sense of familiarity and unfamiliarity. Every unchosen life is a reflection of who you could have been and who you still are on some level. Consider someone who once dreamed of becoming an artist but took a stable job instead. Their life may be good. They may feel content, but when they walk through a museum or watch someone draw, something lights up inside. That light is not frustration, it is memory of potential. If we use the many worlds frame, a version of them does create daily. Their hands are stained with paint. Their schedule is different. Their struggles are different. Their joys are different. The version of themselves here feels the echo of that. Or consider someone who chose to stay in a relationship for many years and then one day chose to leave. The life of staying would have continued. The dinners, the routines, the shared language built over time. The leaving was necessary. The new life may be right, but the self who stayed still exists in the emotional landscape. When a familiar song plays or an old habit returns, the echo rises, not to pull them backward, only to acknowledge that their life branched. The unchosen roads keep going. You do not need to chase these roads. You do not need to return to them. You do not need to mourn them. They belong to the full shape of your identity. When you sense them, you are not being pulled out of your current life. You are recognizing the width of your own existence. Your life is not a single story. It is a map full of paths. You walk one. Many others continue without you, carried by versions of yourself who made different choices. You can feel them sometimes, like wind through a doorway you have not stepped through in years. They are not ghosts, they are not regrets. They are destinations that were possible, and they are still moving. There are moments when you know you should say something, but you struggle to do it. You feel the weight of the words, "I'm sorry," but they stay unspoken. You may not understand why it feels difficult. Apologizing is simple in form, but it requires honesty and vulnerability. It asks you to acknowledge impact, not just intent. Some versions of you learned how to do this earlier in life. Some versions learned later, and some versions of you never learned at all. A many worlds view says that every time you reach a moment of emotional choice, one version of you moves forward in growth, and another stays where things feel safer, more familiar, more controlled. These branches both keep going. The version of you who learned to apologize becomes someone who recognizes their mistakes and repairs connections. The version who did not learns other strategies: silence, deflection, withdrawal, justification. Those strategies may work in the short term, but create distance over time. You can feel these different versions in your emotional habits. When you realize you hurt someone, you may feel two impulses. One part of you wants to speak directly, to repair the connection. Another part wants to protect itself by staying quiet. The voice that holds back may belong to the version of you who never learned to apologize. That version still exists in the structure of your identity, even if you do not follow their path now. Think of a moment when someone told you that your actions caused them pain. They may have spoken gently, or they may have spoken in frustration. Your reaction in that moment says a lot about which version of yourself you are closest to. If you felt defensive, it does not mean you are selfish. It means that in some branch of your life, defensive behavior became the strategy that helped you survive conflict. That version of you handled emotional pain by protecting the self, not by repairing the relationship. Now imagine a version of you who learned early to apologize. Maybe they had someone who modeled that behavior clearly. Maybe they saw apology as strength, not weakness. That version of you can say, "I'm sorry," without losing their sense of self. They can acknowledge harm without collapsing into shame. The conversation ends with more understanding than before. These two versions of you are not imaginary. They are emotional realities formed through different experiences and choices. They influence how you respond today. Consider a scenario. You speak sharply to someone you care about. The moment is quick. You did not intend to hurt them. Later, you realize that your tone caused pain. In this world, you may choose to apologize. You might say, "I hear how that affected you, and I care about that." The conversation softens. There is movement toward closeness. But in another world, you did not apologize. Perhaps you thought the situation would resolve on its own. Perhaps acknowledging it felt too vulnerable. In that world, the silence created distance. The relationship changed, not through one large event, but through the slow accumulation of unspoken moments. The version of you in that world carries the emotional consequences of not learning how to repair. You may feel the echo of that version sometimes. You may feel a sadness you cannot explain. You may feel a loneliness that does not match your current relationships. You may feel tension in your chest during small conflicts. These feelings may belong to the version of you who never learned how to soften, how to admit fault, how to release the need to be right. This does not mean you are trapped by their pattern. It means you can recognize the pattern as something shared across multiple versions of your identity. When you apologize now, you are not only repairing this moment, you are also moving a little further from the version of you who could not. There are people in your life who may remind you of the version of yourself who never learned to apologize. You may see the same pattern in them: the quick defensiveness, the controlled tone, the avoidance of vulnerability. When you notice this in someone else, it can be frustrating, but it can also be a form of recognition. You may be looking at an emotional mirror from another branch of your life. The frustration you feel may come from knowing somewhere that you could have been them, or perhaps you once were. In relationships, apology does more than repair harm. It signals that you aren't willing to see the other person's reality alongside your own. Without apology, each person stays alone in their own experience. The distance grows quietly, not through argument, but through disconnection. In another world, the version of you who never learned to apologize may be surrounded by people and still feel alone. There is a kind of grief that comes from recognizing how many relationships in your life could have been different if apology had come sooner. Not just your apologies, but others too. That grief is not about blame. It is about acknowledging the emotional cost of staying closed. Sometimes, when you feel overwhelming sadness during a conflict, the sadness may not be about the present moment. It may be the echo of all the unresolved moments in other branches of your life. The sadness is not punishment. It is evidence of how deeply the desire for connection runs across every version of who you are. When you choose to apologize now, when you choose to repair, to soften, to see, you are not just changing this moment. You are shifting your position within the field of possible selves. You are moving toward the version of you who knows how to stay connected even when there is conflict. You are leaving behind, gently, the version who watched closeness disappear through silence. The emotional consequences of not apologizing do not stay contained in one world. They echo. The emotional relief of apology also echoes. The choice to repair is a form of alignment, a way of choosing which version of yourself leads your life. There is always still time to shift. The other versions of you remain part of you, not as destiny, but as depth. The version who never learned to apologize is real, and the version who learns now is real too. There are moments when you look back on your life and wonder how things might have unfolded if you had said one thing instead of another. Stayed when you left when you stayed, or asked a different question at the right time. These thoughts are not just memories. They are revisions. They are alternatives that your mind can see, even though they did not happen here. The many worlds view suggests that every time your past could have been different, it was different in another branch of reality. Those lives did not evaporate when you chose the path you are living now. They are stored, like books on shelves, in what we could call the library of possible pasts. This library is not a physical place. It is a structure of identity and potential. Every version of your history exists there, complete with emotion, consequence, and continuity. You are living one of those histories now. The others continue without you, but they are not gone. You feel them sometimes in moments of quiet reflection, or in the sudden sense that you remember something that did not happen. Consider a simple example. You once had the chance to tell someone how you felt about them. You may have stayed silent. You may have believed the moment would return, or you may have feared the change that honesty would bring. The path you live now grew from that silence. The memory of the moment remains, but in another version of your past, you did speak. That version of your life became something else, shaped by the conversation that did happen there. You may feel a pull from that memory, even though it did not occur here. The pull is not regret. It is recognition. One of the shelves in your library holds that past. You might open it when you wonder how your relationship to love would feel now if vulnerability had arrived sooner. Another example, imagine a day when you almost walked away from something that was harming you. You felt the urge to leave, but something in you held on. You stayed. You grew through that choice, but you also carried the weight of it. In another version of that day, you did leave. The person you became in that timeline is different, not better or worse, but shaped by freedom instead of endurance. When you feel a sudden wave of strength that surprises you, it may be the echo of the version of you who walked away. The past you did not live is close enough to feel. This idea is easier to understand when you think of memory not as a fixed record, but as a living process. You do not remember events exactly as they happened. You remember them as they exist inside you now. When you recall a moment, you sometimes see the version that occurred and the version that almost occurred. The mind can hold both. The library holds both fully. Sometimes you revisit a memory and feel sadness that does not match the event itself. You might have handled the situation as best you could. You might have done nothing wrong. Yet, when you return to the moment in your thoughts, a different emotional tone appears. You may feel tenderness, grief, affection, longing, or relief. These emotions may belong to the other versions of the past, the ones where your actions differed or where someone else responded differently, or where circumstances shifted by a detail so small you barely noticed it at the time. The emotional complexity you feel about your past is proof that the library holds many narratives, not just one. Sometimes you may feel nostalgic for a time in your life that was difficult. This does not mean you want to return to the hardship. It means that another version of you found something there, a lesson, a connection, a sense of meaning that you can still feel. Memory is not only about what happened, it is also about what was possible. Imagine you walk through your library. The shelves are lined with moments, conversations, decisions, chances taken and not taken. Each book holds a story of your life as it could have unfolded. Some of these stories are familiar, others are strange. You might find a version of yourself who became a different kind of person in response to one crucial event. You might find a version who stayed gentle longer or who hardened sooner. You might find a version who trusted more or trusted less. None of these versions cancel the others. They coexist. You can feel this when you say, "I used to be someone else," or "I could have become someone else." Both statements are true. The person you once were is still real in the story of your life. The person you could have become is real in a different branch of possibility. When you reflect on your past, you may feel that you are pulling books from shelves you cannot see. The memories come with texture, the smell of the room, the tone of someone's voice, the way the light looked. Alongside the memory, you may also feel the version where things turned out differently. Your mind is not confused when this happens. It is simply acknowledging the layered nature of your identity. If you ever feel a sudden understanding about your past that arrives without effort, it may be that you are seeing the event from the perspective of another version of yourself. The insight feels new but familiar. It feels like knowledge that waited for you. The library did not change. You simply saw another shelf. There is comfort in knowing that every version of your past is preserved, not because you should return to them, and not because you should regret the path you chose, but because your life is larger than the story that fits into a single timeline. The past you live now is one expression of who you are. The others remain as quiet rooms you can sense through feeling, memory, intuition, and reflection. The library is always open. There are moments when you pause and realize your life could have unfolded in many different ways. You stand in your current situation and you know it did not have to go this way. You could have said something different. You could have turned left instead of right. You could have walked away sooner, or stayed longer, or taken a risk you decided against. The awareness comes quietly. It does not accuse. It simply places your life in a wide field of possibility. The many worlds view suggests that every choice leads to not just one future, but many. A version of you lives out each path. You walk the road in front of you, but the other roads do not disappear. They stretch outward, unseen but real in the structure of possibility. This creates a horizon made not of certainty, but of maybes. You might think of this horizon when you catch yourself wondering what your life would be like if you had chosen differently. The thought is natural. It does not mean you are unhappy. It means you can perceive the width of your own existence. Consider a small example. You are deciding whether to send a message to someone you have been thinking about. One part of you feels the impulse to reach out. Another part hesitates. You choose not to send the message. Your day continues as usual. But somewhere in the field of outcomes, there is a version of the day where you did send it. That version leads to a conversation. The conversation leads to something else. A different tone, a reconnection, or perhaps a gentle closing. Either way, that life continues. You can feel the presence of that other path, even though you cannot see it. Think of a time when you made a decision that changed everything. Maybe you chose a partner, or a job, or a city. You made the choice because it made sense, or because it felt right, or because you had to move. But before you chose, there were several futures available to you. The moment you decided, the world narrowed into one lived reality and expanded into many unrealized ones. Yet those unrealized futures are not discarded. They remain as potential that still moves in the background. This can show up as memories that feel borrowed. It can show up as déjà vu that arrives without reason. It can show up as the quiet feeling that something about your life could have shifted in an entirely different direction. When you think about your future, you may see more than one possible outcome. You may see one where you stay where you are, one where you begin again, one where you return to something you left, one where you let something go. You may not know which one you will walk toward. You stand at the edge of the horizon and see that it is not a single line, it is many. This awareness can create fear, but it can also create relief. You are not trapped. You are not limited to one version of your life. You are living one version now, but the possibility of change is always present. Imagine walking a path through a forest. The trees stand around you. The trail is visible, but there are faint paths branching away from it. Some are narrow, some are wide, some are overgrown. You do not need to explore all of them, but you know they are there. The main path does not erase the branches. The branches do not undermine the path you are walking. They are simply part of the landscape. The horizon of maybes allows you to understand change not as loss, but as rotation. When you choose, you are turning toward one direction. The other directions still exist. You can feel them like faint outlines behind your current experience. You may sometimes feel like you are standing between who you were and who you could become. The feeling is not confusion. It is awareness that identity is a moving shape. You are not finished. You are not permanent. You are in motion. This can be seen clearly when you are at a transition point. A job is ending. A relationship is shifting. A belief you held for years is starting to loosen. You may not know yet what comes next. The future may feel open in a way that is both unsettling and freeing. The horizon is wide during these times. You may feel the presence of many versions of yourself, waiting to take shape. It can be helpful to notice how your body responds to certain possibilities. When you imagine a path, you may feel ease. When you imagine another, you may feel tightness. The body has learned patterns across many experiences, and perhaps across many versions of your life. Intuition is often the recognition of a direction that already fits your shape. This does not mean you must choose perfectly. There is no perfect path. Every path contains difficulty. Every path contains growth. Every path contains meaning that is discovered through living, not predicting. Sometimes the horizon feels overwhelming because the possibilities feel endless. But you only walk one breath at a time. You do not need to choose your entire life. You only choose your next step. You choose how you speak. You choose how you respond. You choose how you show up. These are small choices, but small choices are the hinges that turn the larger structure. If you look back, you can see how small decisions shaped entire chapters. A conversation started something new. A moment of silence ended something old. A single yes or no altered the rhythm of your life. You did not know at the time how much weight the moment carried. You only realized later. This is the nature of maybes. They are not dramatic. They are woven into ordinary time. You do not need to chase every possible life. You do not need to regret the ones you did not live. You can acknowledge them as part of the full shape of who you are. When you feel the horizon open behind your breath, it does not mean you are lost. It means you are capable of change. It means you are aware that life is not fixed. It means you recognize the quiet richness in the structure of possibility. You walk forward. The horizon walks with you. There are moments in life that do not fit neatly into memory or logic. You find an object in a place you do not remember placing it. You recall a conversation someone insists never happened. You walk into a room and feel as though something is slightly off. Not in any dramatic way, but in a subtle shift of atmosphere, like the world has been rearranged by a fraction of an inch. You experience an impossible coincidence that feels less like chance and more like the intersection of two paths converging for a second before separating again. These moments are often dismissed as mistakes in perception or tricks of memory. And sometimes they are. The mind is imperfect. It fills gaps. It edits. But some of these experiences carry a different tone. They feel like something touched your life from outside your expected timeline. Not a ghost, not a dream, something parallel. The many worlds view says that every moment branches. You continue along one branch while another version of events unfolds in a neighboring reality. Most of the time, these worlds remain separate, but sometimes, under certain conditions, the boundaries become thin. The result is a glitch, something that feels out of place, yet oddly familiar. Consider a simple example. You are looking for your keys. You search your pockets, your table, your bag. The keys are not there. You give up for a moment. Then, without any new movement, the keys are on the table in clear view. Not because you overlooked them. You are certain they were not there. The moment feels quiet and strange, as if reality corrected itself. It is possible you simply missed them, but the sensation that something shifted lingers. If there are many versions of your life, then perhaps in one branch, you did place the keys on the table. In another, you left them elsewhere. When your focus and awareness shift, your experience might align briefly with the version where the keys were already in view. The mind receives the new state as a correction, even though no visible action occurred. This does not require belief in magic. It recognizes that perception may slip along closely neighboring timelines without your conscious awareness. Another example occurs with memory. You may remember a song lyric, a line from a movie, or the spelling of a word, only to learn that others remember it differently. This phenomenon is sometimes called the Mandela effect. It is often explained by collective misremembering, which does happen, but the feeling behind it can be hard to dismiss. You are not confused, you are certain. The memory carries emotional weight, a sense of having lived it. If memories are formed across many lived possibilities, then your certainty may come from remembering something that happened in another branch where the event occurred as you recall it. You are not wrong. You are remembering another version of your past, stored in the structure of your identity. You may also notice overlaps in relationships. You meet someone for the first time and feel the ease of familiarity. You know how they will respond before they speak. You understand their humor immediately. The interaction has the texture of a continuation rather than a beginning. It feels as though the connection already existed and you are stepping back into it. In another reality, that relationship may have grown for years. In this one, you are meeting them now. The overlap creates a sense of recognition without history, not fate, not destiny, continuity across worlds. There are also coincidences that arrive with a sense of timing that does not feel random. You think of someone you have not spoken to in months, and they contact you within minutes. You walk into a place you have never been, and the environment feels arranged, as though the layout matches something internal. You speak a thought, and someone near you speaks the same thought at the same time. These moments are not loud. They are quiet alignments. The mind is skilled at finding patterns. But sometimes the pattern is real, because parallel paths are close in structure. When two versions of your life move in similar rhythms, the overlap becomes visible. The coincidence is the trace of two worlds brushing edges. Sometimes the overlap feels disorienting. You might wake from a dream that felt more real than your waking life. You recall specific details, conversations, rooms, relationships. None of it exists here, but the emotional memory of it stays. The feeling of belonging in that world lingers as you open your eyes. In the many worlds frame, that dream may not be fiction. It may be a glimpse of another version of your life, where you are living in a different context. Your mind may have shifted into alignment with that path while your body rested in this one. When you woke, your sense of self returned here, but the emotional continuity did not disappear. The overlap leaves an afterglow. There are moments when something in your environment feels like it has been replaced. A building looks slightly different. A room feels smaller. A familiar person looks unfamiliar for a second. You may dismiss it, but the sensation remains. It is as if you moved half a step to the side in reality, and the world is still settling into focus. These moments do not require panic. They do not suggest something is wrong. They simply show that your experience of reality is not limited to a single timeline. You live in one world, but you are connected to many. The borders between them are not rigid. They shift in response to attention, emotion, memory, and meaning. When two worlds touch, the moment is delicate. It passes quickly. The mind registers it as something strange and then moves on. But if you pay attention, you can recognize the texture of the overlap. It has a quiet tone, neither dramatic nor frightening. It feels like a reminder that your life is larger than the version you see. You continue living your day. You return to your tasks. You speak, walk, move forward. The worlds separate again, but the moment remains as evidence that reality has more depth than one path can show. There are times when you remember something with clarity, even though the event did not happen in your life. The memory arrives fully formed. You see the place, the people, the weather, the way you felt. You are certain. But when you try to place the memory into the sequence of your actual history, there is no place for it to land. It does not match any known moment. It stands alone. Most people explain this by saying the mind is creative, or memory is flawed, or dreams bleed into waking life. Those explanations are valid. Memory is not a perfect recording, but the feeling that comes with certain unplaced memories suggests something else. The emotion is precise. The familiarity is complete. You remember from inside the experience, not from the outside. The many worlds view suggests that there are countless versions of your life playing out in parallel. In each version, the person you call you makes different choices, forms different bonds, learns different lessons. If this is true, then memory is not limited to a single timeline. Sometimes the mind recalls something from another branch of your life, a life that unfolded in a different direction. The memory does not belong here, but it is still yours. This kind of memory can appear in simple ways. You may walk into a room you have never seen, but you know exactly what is behind the door to your left. You know where the window is. You know how it feels to stand there at night, even if you are there in the day. You are aware that you should not know these things, but the recognition is steady. It does not feel like imagination. It feels like memory. Another example, you meet someone for the first time and feel as though you have known them for years. You know how they will smile. You know the sound of their laugh before you hear it. You know how they respond when they are tired. You cannot explain why. The familiarity does not come from projection or wish. It feels like a continuation of something. In another timeline, perhaps your lives were intertwined. The emotional memory carries across. Sometimes this happens with skills. You try something new, playing an instrument, using a tool, moving your body in a certain way, and it feels natural. You have never practiced it here, yet the movement is smooth. Your hands or thoughts remember something that did not happen in this version of your life. You learn quickly, because the learning has already taken place elsewhere. Not every unexplained memory is meaningful. Some are fragments. Some are faint impressions, but some carry weight. They show you something about who you are across worlds. There are also emotional memories, feelings that arise without an obvious cause. You may feel grief for someone you never lost. You may feel affection for someone you barely know. You may feel homesick for a place you have never visited. The feeling is not vague. It is clear and steady. The emotional memory belongs to a life where these experiences were real. For example, you may wake up from a dream where you lived in a different home with different daily rhythms. The dream may not feel symbolic or strange. It feels ordinary, familiar, grounded. When you wake, your body remembers the weight of sitting at that kitchen table, or opening that window, or walking down that hallway. The dream fades, but the sense of lived-in familiarity remains. In another version of your life, that home is real. The memory stayed with you when you returned here. Another kind of ghost memory appears as a sudden understanding. You may find yourself giving advice you did not have to learn here. You speak from a place of experience you cannot trace. The words come easily. You do not feel like you are guessing. Something in you knows. The knowledge may come from another version of your life where you navigated that lesson directly. This does not mean your life is fractured. It means your identity is wide. You might notice moments when you react to something with greater intensity than the situation seems to call for. The intensity might not belong to this life. It might belong to a version of you who lived through something similar and carries the emotional imprint of it. You are not remembering the event directly, but you feel the echo of how it shaped you elsewhere. This can show up in relationships as well. You may feel a deep caution around a type of person you have never had a negative experience with here. Your caution is not paranoia. It is experience held in another timeline. The emotion has crossed the boundary even if the memory did not. Or the opposite can happen. You may feel trust immediately. You may feel safe without needing explanation. That trust may be informed by another branch where that connection already grew and proved itself. Human identity is structured from patterns, not single events. When you recall something from another timeline, you are seeing the larger shape of who you are, not limited to one line of time, but formed across many. The ghost memories do not arrive to confuse you. They do not arrive to distract you. They appear to show you that your experience of being a person is larger than what you see in one lifetime. They remind you that the self is not a narrow thread. It is a weave. Sometimes, when you feel these memories, you may feel a quiet sadness. The sadness is not regret. It is recognition of a life that is real, but not lived here. A life you touched without staying. A life you remember without returning. This sadness is gentle. It does not pull you away from the present. It simply acknowledges the depth of your existence. The memories that never happened here are not mistakes. They are traces of the other rooms in the building of your identity. You stand in one room now. The others remain. You can feel them when the walls thin for a moment. Regret is often spoken about as an emotion, something soft and private. But regret can also be understood as a kind of stored energy, a pull toward a version of life that could have happened but didn't. This energy does not disappear simply because time has moved forward. It lingers. It takes a shape inside you. It waits to be understood. In physics, energy does not vanish. It changes form. Potential becomes motion. Motion becomes heat. Heat returns to stillness. Regret behaves in a similar way. It is potential that never found expression, a movement that stopped before it began, a sentence held in the back of the throat, a truth that stayed unspoken. The energy of the unchosen path remains, even when the path itself fades from view. Imagine a moment in your life when you made a decision that mattered. Perhaps you had the chance to say something real to someone. You felt the words rise, and you also felt fear. The fear won. You stayed quiet. Life continued. You learned from it. You grew in other ways. But the energy of the words that wanted to be spoken did not disappear. It settled into you. You feel it sometimes when you think of that person, not as pain, but as tension, something unfinished, something waiting. The many worlds view suggests that in another version of that same moment, you did speak. You chose the risk. You learned whatever came from it. That version of your life continues. The regret you feel now is not simply longing for a different outcome. It is a signal that the energy of that other path is still connected to you. You can see this more clearly when regret is not about large life decisions, but daily moments. You may regret the tone you used in a conversation. You may regret not giving yourself rest. You may regret distraction, avoidance, hesitation. These are not dramatic events. They are small divergences in the flow of your life. but each contains energy. You feel the weight of these moments because your mind can sense the shape of the alternative. You know what it would have felt like to speak gently, to rest earlier, to be present. The regret is not punishment, it is awareness. Regret often shows up as a repeated memory. The scene replays in your mind. You watch yourself act. You feel how close you were to acting differently. The repetition is not intrusive. It is the mind returning to unfinished energy. The moment held something that did not find its release. This does not mean you must return to the moment or try to repair it. The past is not an object you can rearrange, but you can use the energy of the regret in the present. If you regret not apologizing in one moment, you can choose honesty now. If you regret not protecting yourself then, you can choose boundaries now. The energy is not lost, it is available. Sometimes regret comes from something done, not something left undone. You may regret choosing quickly. You may regret reacting from fear or anger. You may regret causing harm. The regret carries weight because you understand now what you did not understand then. The energy here is not only in the act, it is in the learning that followed. When you feel regret, you might try to push it away. You might tell yourself the past is gone. You might call yourself foolish for caring, but regret is not asking you to return to the past. It is pointing to the values that mattered to you. Regret shows you what you care about by showing you when you acted against that care. There is a form of regret that does not involve guilt or sadness. It is quieter. It appears as a gentle ache for a version of yourself you did not get to be. You may imagine a life where you were more open, more brave, more curious, more trusting. That life is not fiction. It is one of the paths you could have taken. The regret is not about failure. It is about recognition. For example, someone might regret not learning a particular skill. They may say, "I should have done it when I had the chance." But the regret is not about the skill. It is about the part of themselves that wanted to feel capable. The energy is located in the desire, not the action. When the desire is acknowledged, the regret becomes a doorway rather than a weight. There are moments when regret may feel like grief. Not grief for a person, but grief for a direction. Grief for a version of yourself who did not come into being. In the many worlds view, that version exists. They are living their life. They are a real expression of your identity across time. The grief you feel is the recognition of divergence. Two paths that once touched now move away from each other. The grief is quiet because you are not losing something. You are acknowledging distance. Regret is energy waiting for movement. It is potential that can still become something new. It does not require you to undo the past. It invites you to act differently in the present. It says, you know something now, use it. When regret appears, instead of saying, "I shouldn't feel this," you might say, "What is the energy here asking to become?" You might notice where in your body the regret sits. You might notice what memories return. You might notice what desire is hidden inside the ache. The paths we did not take do not disappear. They remain as possible shapes of who we are. Regret is the way the mind traces the outline of those shapes. It is not a flaw. It is a form of awareness. It means you are capable of imagining a different form of yourself. It means the energy of choice is still alive. Imagine a quiet room with a long table. The light is soft. The chairs are simple. There is nothing extravagant about the scene. Yet every chair is filled by someone who is you. Not symbolic versions, not imagined variations, actual versions, each shaped by different decisions made across time. Each one carries the memory of a life that branched from the same starting point, your earliest self, the version of you who stayed, the version of you who left, the version who confessed, the version who said nothing, the version who took the risk, the version who waited too long. They are all present. This is not a metaphor about identity fragmentation. It is a way of seeing how every choice you made and every choice you did not make continues to exist in the structure of your experience. If you could speak to all these selves, you might expect conflict or competition. But the atmosphere of the dinner is not tense. It is patient. There is recognition in the room. You might look at the version of yourself who took the bold path and feel both admiration and discomfort. This version of you may have pursued a dream you let go of. Their shoulders may carry the weight of the consequences you avoided. Their eyes show what belief in oneself looks like when it is uninterrupted. You do not envy them, though you may feel the pull of the road they walked. You might notice the version of you who stayed in a situation you eventually left. This self might sit quietly, hands folded, with a calm that comes from enduring. They did not choose freedom when you did, but their patience taught you something. You can almost feel the history in their posture. They are not weaker. They are simply a record of the cost of waiting. Then there is the version of you who spoke truth too early or too sharply. This self might sit with a posture of knowing they acted honestly, but without the timing or tenderness that would have helped the moment land. They may not regret speaking. They may only regret the loss that followed. Their presence shows that courage, without care, can still teach something important. There is also the version of you who never learned to forgive. They are rigid. They grip the table. They know how to protect themselves, but not how to soften. You recognize them. You know how to speak their language. They are not wrong. They formed to survive something. But the room shows they are not the only way to be. The interesting part of this dinner is that none of the selves are strangers. They all know each other. They are built from the same core pattern, the same early memories, the same first loves, the same old fears. The differences came later, when choices branched. If you ask each one what shaped them most, they will answer with different moments, but the moment they name will always be familiar to you. It will be one of the crossroads you remember. One self might say, "Everything changed the day I walked away." You remember that day. You did not walk away in this life, but you know the moment, the air, the weight of the choice. You remember it as potential. They remember it as history. Another might say, "Everything changed when I stayed." You stayed in your version, but you stayed differently. You stayed longer, or shorter, or with more understanding. The shape is shared. The outcome is different. This room shows how regret, pride, fear, longing, and relief are not isolated emotions. They are links between versions of yourself, separated by choices, but connected by memory. Some of the selves at the table seem happier than you. Some are more tired. Some are more fearful. Some are more open. But none exist without context. The one who seems happiest may have sacrificed something you value. The one who seems most at peace may have lost something you are still holding. The one who seems most guarded may have protected something you let break. You might notice that the version of you who made the most courageous choice is not necessarily the one who looks the most fulfilled. Courage does not guarantee ease. It only guarantees authenticity. Sometimes authenticity brings pain. Sometimes it brings freedom. Often it brings both. You might also notice that the version of you who chose safety is not ashamed. They had their reasons. They cared for something fragile. They understood the cost of change. They were not ready. Readiness is not failure. It is timing. Some choices come too early. Some come too late. Some arrive at the exact moment they can be made. If you begin to speak with these selves, the conversation is not about who is right. It is about what each version learned. The self who apologized too little sits beside the self who apologized constantly. They compare experiences. One learned how to protect dignity. The other learned how to protect connection. You learn from both. The self who chased every desire sits beside the self who denied most of them. Desire can shape a life, whether it is pursued or suppressed. Both versions know something the other does not. Their presence in the same room allows balance. The selves do not argue. They exchange understanding. If you look at the table from a distance, you may notice something about the seating arrangement. The selves who suffered the most sit close to the selves who grew the most. Pain and growth are not separate threads. They are variations on the same path. The selves who achieved something meaningful sit near the selves who lost something important. Achievement and loss are not opposites. They are conditions of movement. There may be a version of you who never tried, who avoided every risk. This self may sit with regret, but also with clarity. They are not less valuable. They show what happens when fear is never challenged. They explain something the others could not. There may be a version of you who tried everything and burned out. This self may be tired, but also wise. They know the cost of running without rest. They teach boundaries. You are not asked to choose which self is correct. The room does not require judgment. It only reflects that the self you are now is one expression among many. The dinner is not competition. It is recognition of complexity. Each version of you lived a life that made sense given what they knew, felt, and understood at the time. Every self at the table is you. Each one holds part of your story. There are moments in life that do not quite become anything. A decision almost made, a sentence almost spoken, a path almost taken. These moments rarely stand out when they happen. They are quiet. They occur in the space of a breath, a pause, a hesitation. Yet they carry weight. They form a kind of gravitational pull in memory. They draw your attention back to them long after time has moved on. Many people think choices only matter when they are acted on. But the near choices, the almosts, shape us as much as the choices we commit to. They leave outlines in our identity. They are like shadows of roads not walked, but close enough to see. The many worlds view gives language to this. It suggests that every almost is real in another version of your life. Every hesitation is a doorway to a path that continues elsewhere. The path exists whether you walked it or not. This helps explain why certain memories stay with such insistence. You may think of someone you almost told the truth to. You may remember standing in the doorway of a decision you did not step through. You may recall the feeling of wanting to change something, but not knowing how. The memory does not fade because it is connected to a version of your life where you did take the next step. Your awareness can sense the presence of that nearby reality. The emotional weight is the gravity of the world you almost lived. Consider a moment when you almost left a situation that was slowly wearing you down. You felt the push, the quiet voice that said it was time. But you stayed. Maybe staying was necessary. Maybe leaving would have opened something painful before you were ready. But the moment still lives inside you. It returns when you feel stressed or when something reminds you of that time. The gravity of the almost is not regret. It is the recognition of a parallel version of yourself who walked out the door. Another example, you almost reached out to someone you cared about. You wrote the message in your mind. You rehearsed the tone. You knew what you wanted to say, but something held you. Fear, timing, uncertainty, pride. It does not matter which. The moment passed. The message was never sent. Yet your chest remembers the shape of the words. The breath of the moment lingers. In another version of your life, you did send it. You carried out the conversation. You know this because you can feel it. Almosts have emotional consequences. They do not close the way finished events do. There is no resolution. There is only potential stored in the mind and body. This stored potential becomes part of how you move in the world. It influences what you do next time a similar moment comes. It may push you toward bravery, or it may encourage caution. Either way, the almost shapes behavior. There is also a softer form of almost, the one tied to curiosity rather than regret or relief. You may think about who you would be if you had chosen a different city, or stayed in the town you left, or pursued the art you set aside, or followed the person who once asked you to try again. These almosts do not wound. They simply expand your sense of identity. They remind you that who you are is not the only way you could have become. Sometimes the almosts show up as a sudden familiarity with something new. You meet a person and feel comfortable instantly. You walk into a place and feel as though you have been there before. You hear a sentence and it lands like an echo. The feeling is quiet and strange. It is as if you are brushing against a path you walked in another world. You can also see the gravity of almosts in conflict, when you find yourself revisiting an argument long after it happened. You are not reviewing the conflict itself. You are reviewing the version of you who could have responded differently. The gravity is in the alternate version of the moment, the one where you listened more closely, or spoke more plainly, or remained calm. The power of the memory is not stored in what did happen, but in what nearly happened. There are almosts that feel like mercy. You might think of a danger you almost stepped into, a relationship you almost returned to, a belief you almost accepted that would have made your world smaller. The almost saved you. The gravity here is relief. Relief also leaves a mark. In this way, almosts act like doors that remain slightly open. They are not meant to be walked through now, but they do not close all the way either. You can stand in the present and see the possibilities that shaped you without needing to become them. People sometimes worry that thinking about almosts is a form of dwelling, or that it means they are not satisfied with their life. But reflection is not dissatisfaction, it is awareness. To notice the shape of your almosts is to recognize that your life could have unfolded in many directions, and that you carry traces of each direction inside you. The almosts are evidence that your identity is larger than your circumstances. You are not defined only by the choices you made. You are also shaped by the paths that stood close enough to touch you, even if you never walked them. You might ask yourself which almosts return most often. You might notice which ones arrive with tenderness, which with tension, which with curiosity. Each one holds energy that can still move through your life. Some almosts ask to be released. Some ask to be understood. Some ask to become present action when the moment reappears. What makes the almost so powerful is not that it did not happen. It is that it almost did. You are close enough to feel its reality, close enough to carry its imprint, close enough that the version of you who made the other choice does not feel distant. They feel like another room in the same house. Worlds made of almost are not separate from the life you live. They shape the contours of who you are now. They remind you that your life has depth, not only in what has happened, but in everything that nearly became. There is often a place that lives in your mind, a city you almost moved to. You may have visited once and felt something settle in your chest, as if the air answered a question you did not know you were asking. Or maybe you planned the move in detail, found apartments online, imagined the daily walk to the store, the smell of morning there. Perhaps you even packed for it, or signed the paperwork, or told people you were leaving. But something shifted, and you stayed where you are. That city did not disappear just because you did not go there. In your inner landscape, it remains as a home that exists in another branch of your life. If the many worlds view holds any truth, then there is a version of you who lives there now. A version who wakes under a different sky, hears different sirens or birds or quiet, knows different weather through their skin. You may feel that version sometimes. It can happen when you see a photograph of a skyline you recognize, even though you have not lived with it. It can happen when a smell catches you by surprise. Rain on pavement, ocean salt, wood smoke, roasted coffee drifting out of a narrow street cafe. For a second, you are in two places at once. Your breath catches because the memory feels lived. You know how the floor feels under your feet in an apartment that does not exist here. You might think this is imagination, but imagination and memory are not as far apart as they seem. Imagination can be memory from another timeline, one your awareness brushes against without fully entering. The city you never moved to is not just a location. It is a version of your life, a rhythm, a pattern of motion, a set of surroundings that would have shaped your habits and your emotional vocabulary. Think of how places change the way you carry yourself. In a small town, your steps may be slower. You might know the same faces every day. The world is tight, held close. In a large city, your stride becomes quick. You navigate crowds with a kind of instinct. You learn to hold both curiosity and distance at the same time. In a coastal city, the horizon shapes your thoughts. In a mountain city, the sky feels near enough to touch. You are shaped by where you live, whether you notice it or not. The city you almost moved to holds a different shape of you. Consider a real example. You once thought about moving to a city where you knew no one. You imagined starting over, new routines, new cafes, a new way of introducing yourself because no one there had any expectations of who you were. You could have chosen a quieter version of yourself or a bolder one. You could have walked different streets and learned the subtle geography of different neighborhoods. You would have found new favorite corners, new people who would have become important to you. When you think of that city now, you might feel a kind of longing that does not have pain in it. It is not regret, it is recognition. You are feeling the presence of the life that continued in another branch of possibility. Or perhaps you almost returned to a city you once lived in. You left, thinking the story was over, but a part of you wondered what would happen if you went back. You might picture yourself walking familiar roads, finding everything the same but changed, realizing you are the one who changed. The city you did not move back to holds a version of you who tried again, a version who learned whether the past could be lived twice. You may never know the answer here, but somewhere in the structure of possibility, that answer exists. The city you never moved to sometimes shows up when you are tired of the life you are living. You may feel the urge to run, not as escape, but as return. Return to the version of you who believed that change was possible. The city becomes a symbol of mobility, of fluid identity, of chance. But it is not only about identity, it is also about relationships. The people you would have met there live somewhere in your imagination. You may not know their names, but you can sense the emotional outlines, the brief conversations in doorways, the person you would have sat beside on the bus every morning, the neighbor you might have smiled at in the hallway, the love that might have begun in a grocery store aisle or at a bookstore table. These relationships exist as unrealized potentials. They are not empty. They carry weight because the capacity for connection is real, even when the meeting does not occur here. Sometimes the city you never moved to returns when you feel restless, not because you want to go now, but because the version of you who moved did not stand still. They lived. They gathered stories. They have something to tell you. The pull you feel is not toward relocation, it is toward growth. In this sense, the city is not calling you. Your own potential is. There is also the reverse scenario, the city you did move to, where life unfolded differently than you expected. You might walk its streets and feel both belonging and distance. You might feel yourself living in conversation with the city you didn't choose. The two cities form a pair, one external, one internal, one lived, one imagined, but no less real in emotional memory. When you think of the city you never moved to, notice the quality of the feeling. Is it warm like a memory of sunlight? Is it sharp like a warning? Is it flat like something completed without being lived? The feeling tells you something about who you are now. If it feels warm, then the version of you living there is content. If it feels sharp, that version of you learned a lesson you may not need to learn here. If it feels flat, that path served its purpose simply by existing as an option. The city you never moved to is not a loss, it is a companion. It lives beside your current life, not behind it. You carry its outline in your memory of who you could have been. It is a quiet, steady presence, like a second horizon, waiting just beyond the edge of the one you see. Most people think of dreams as stories the brain invents, a mixture of memory, imagination, and stray thoughts. Yet there are dreams that do not feel invented. They feel lived. You wake with the sense that you came back from somewhere rather than created something. The details hold together in ways dreams usually do not. You remember the weight of the air. You remember how the room smelled. You remember the specific rhythm of someone's voice. And when you wake, you are surprised to find yourself in your own bed, in your own life, as if you arrived there rather than remained there. These dreams have continuity. You return to the same places across months or years of sleep. You recognize the streets. You know which direction to turn. You remember where the kitchen light switch is in a house you have never seen while awake. You know how it feels to sit on the stairs of a building that does not exist here. There is no guessing involved. The memory is direct. The many worlds view allows for a simple explanation. The dreaming mind may move across timelines, not physically, but through awareness. If every possible version of your life exists in parallel, then sleep may be the state in which attention loosens enough to slip into alignment with another branch. You do not create these worlds, you visit them. Consider a recurring dream in which you live in a different city. You walk familiar streets. You know the neighbors. The dream life follows its own timeline. You notice changes. A store closes. A friend moves away. Seasons pass. The dream does not reset each time. It continues. This is not narrative the brain constructs each night. It is continuity. Continuity suggests a life already unfolding. Or think of the dreams where you are in a house that feels like home, though you cannot place its location in your waking life. You know which rooms feel safe and which do not. You know the sound the floor makes when stepped on in the hallway. You know which window sticks and how the light looks in the late afternoon. These are not random details. They are the kind of knowledge that comes only from living somewhere. There are also dreams where you meet people you do not know here, but you know them there. You feel love, trust, resentment, history. You remember arguments you have not had in this world. You feel affection for someone whose face you cannot recall fully upon waking, but whose presence you can still feel in your chest. When you wake, the emotion lingers without context. The memory is emotional first and visual second. Emotional memory is often more stable than visual memory. You may not remember the exact layout of a place, but you remember how it felt to be there. When dreams function as portals, what stays with you is the emotional continuity between worlds. Sometimes the reverse happens. You dream of your current life, but something is subtly different. A wall is the wrong color. A friend's face is slightly altered. A familiar street curves in a direction it does not curve here. The dream feels almost right. Almost. These dreams may be crossings between very similar timelines. You wake with a feeling of displacement that fades over the day. Not confusion, just slight misalignment, as if reality took a moment to settle back into place. There are also dreams that feel like guidance. You experience yourself in a version of your life where you have already faced something you are about to face here. You watch your dream self navigate it. You see what they learned. You wake with a steady sense of knowing, not advice, not instruction, recognition. The knowledge does not come from outside. It comes from another version of yourself who has already lived through the experience. This can show up as calm. You may wake and feel that you can handle something you previously feared. The confidence is not imagined. It is the cross-timeline transfer of experience. There are dreams that act like memory retrieval. You dream of someone you have not thought of in years. You dream of a place that mattered once. You dream of the version of yourself you used to be. The dream brings the memory forward without narrative. It places you back inside it. The memory becomes present. You wake with insight that was not available before. In another type of dream, you meet yourself, not symbolically. You see a version of yourself who made the other choice, the one who stayed, the one who left, the one who spoke, the one who stayed silent. The interaction is not judgmental. It is recognition. You see what they carry. You see what you avoided. You see what you lost. You wake with a new understanding of your path. Some people experience dreams where they die. These dreams often bring peace rather than fear. This may be because some versions of you have reached the end of their path. The dream is not a warning. It is the acknowledgement of closure across worlds. The self continues, just not in that branch. Sometimes after one of these dreams, waking feels strange. You look at your room and it feels both familiar and foreign. You touch your face. You stretch your hands. You check the time. You re-enter your life like someone stepping back into a play they temporarily left. The adjustment is gentle, but noticeable. People often dismiss these dreams because they do not fit ordinary explanations. But ordinary explanations are not required. What matters is the experience, the clarity, the lived quality of the dream, the continuity. If dreams can be portals, then sleep is not just rest, it is travel. You leave and return. You wake carrying knowledge, emotion, and quiet impressions of lives you did not live here, but are still connected to. The dream world and the waking world are not separate. They are two rooms in the same house, and the doorway between them is simply closing your eyes. Life often appears ordered when we look backward. Events line up, causes seem to explain effects. We tell stories about why things happened the way they did, and the timelines look smooth, almost inevitable. But when we are inside a moment, when we are choosing, things feel different. A decision does not feel like a straight line. It feels like standing in the center of a field of possible futures. Each option is part of a branching system that extends beyond what we can see. This branching is not dramatic. It can happen over very small things. You decide when to leave the house. You decide what tone to use in a conversation. You decide whether to stay silent or speak up. Each decision shifts the direction of your life. The shift may be subtle, but subtle changes compound. Over time, they become entire paths. Chaos theory uses the image of a butterfly flapping its wings and influencing a storm on the other side of the world. The point is not the butterfly. The point is sensitivity. Small actions can create large consequences when they sit at crucial decision points. A gentle push at the right moment can shift the entire structure of a life. In the many worlds view, each small decision does not simply change the direction of a single life. Each choice generates multiple versions of the future. When you take one path, another version of you takes the other. These futures unfold side by side. They are separate, but not independent. They share origin. They share memory up to the moment of divergence. This creates what can be understood as a symphony of divergence. Each version of you is a theme, carried forward through variations. The variations differ in rhythm, tone, weight, and direction, but they remain connected to the original motif, the core of who you are. You can feel the symphony when you think about what your life could have been if one moment had gone differently. You may think of the time you almost changed careers. You may think of the relationship you almost pursued. You may think of the day you almost told the truth about something you feared to say. The feeling behind these thoughts is not regret. It is recognition that other versions of your life exist in potential or in parallel. Consider a moment from your past when you stood at a crossroads. It may have been obvious at the time, or it may only look like a crossroads in hindsight. You might have been choosing between staying and leaving, a familiar life and an unknown one. The moment likely felt overwhelming. It may have felt chaotic. You did not know which choice was right. You only knew that the decision would matter. The chaos in that moment was not disorder, it was abundance. A large number of possible outcomes existed at once. The weight you felt was not pressure, it was the density of potential. Chaos does not destroy order, it makes room for new order. It allows possibility to expand rather than collapse into a single pattern too soon. When you chose, the possibilities did not disappear. You moved into one of them. The others continued without you. Somewhere in the structure of your identity, you can still sense the presence of those other lines. You may feel pulled toward them in memory, in dream, or in quiet moments of reflection. Sometimes the pull feels like, what if? But sometimes it feels like knowledge. You may know, without needing to reason it out, that if you had chosen differently, you would have become a different version of yourself. You would have gained something and lost something. Each version of your life involves trade-offs. The symphony metaphor helps make sense of this. A symphony can hold tension, release, harmony, dissonance, and silence at once. Multiple lines move at the same time. They may separate and rejoin. They may move in parallel. The music is made from their relationship to each other, not from any single line by itself. Your life is not a single line. It is a movement in a larger composition. Sometimes the divergence is clear. You move to a new place. You end or begin a relationship. You take on a role that shifts your daily landscape. The change is visible. But divergence also happens in small moments. You choose to listen more carefully. You choose to stop explaining yourself. You choose to forgive. You choose to let yourself rest. The world does not change in appearance, but something inside you shifts direction. These small internal divergences accumulate. They create the difference between one emotional life and another. The symphony does not require grand gestures. It unfolds through simple turns. There is a particular experience many people have that makes this clear. You find yourself living a moment that feels both new and familiar. You may think, I have been here before, even though you have not. The familiarity does not come from memory, it comes from alignment. A current version of yourself has arrived at a place where another version of yourself arrived in a different branch of life. The emotional resonance is the overlap. This overlap does not mean you are crossing worlds. It means the worlds are composed of related themes. The Symphony of Divergence does not erase similarity, it builds on it. You can also sense divergence in the way you imagine your future. You do not see one future, you see several. Some feel possible, some feel distant. Some feel like they belong to who you are becoming. Others feel like echoes of identities you are already outgrowing. The futures that feel possible are the paths that harmonize with your current line of music. The futures that feel distant are variations that belong to other versions of your life. This awareness does not require control. You do not need to predict outcomes. You do not need to avoid mistakes. Every choice leads to a path that contains learning, growth, and consequence. There is no way to choose a life without challenge. There is only choosing a direction. Chaos is not the enemy of meaning. It is the condition that allows meaning to unfold across many forms. The branches of your life do not compete. They coexist. The self you are now is one expression of a wider composition that continues, whether you hear every part or not. The symphony plays on. There are moments when you imagine the version of yourself who made a different choice. The one who stayed in school longer. The one who took the job in the other city. The one who ended the relationship sooner. The one who spoke more honestly, or worked harder, or rested more. You picture this person not as a stranger, but as you. A slightly shifted you. A you who stands just a few steps to the left of where you are now. You may feel the presence of this other self like a shadow. Not dark, not ominous, just near. A quiet outline of what could have been. You sense that this version of you is living a life that feels smoother or clearer. They carry themselves with a kind of ease you wish you had. You imagine they are more confident, or more stable, or more fulfilled. The comparison does not need to be harsh to be painful. It can feel like a gentle ache, and almost. In the many worlds view, this shadow self is not imaginary. They exist as one branch of your life that unfolded differently. Where you hesitated, they acted. Where you endured, they left. Where you feared embarrassment, they risked something. Each divergence forms a real timeline, with its own history, its own consequences, and its own emotional logic. You sense this self when you say, "I know I could be doing more," or "I know who I would be if I had just tried," or "I almost became someone else." You are not speaking metaphorically. You are speaking about a real potential self who stands close enough for you to feel them. But the shadow of the better you is rarely as simple as it appears. Consider a moment where you imagine your better self waking up early, exercising, finishing tasks on time, speaking with calm certainty, building habits that stack into stability. You may think the difference between you and them is discipline, but discipline is not formed in a vacuum. It is shaped by circumstance, resources, emotional weather, relationships, timing, and past experience. The version of you who does everything right lives in a context where those choices made sense. The life you are living now has its own pressures and demands that shaped your path. There is a reason you became this version of you. The shadow self you imagine may have gained something you want, but they also lost something you have. They may have pursued ambition, but sacrificed rest. They may have achieved stability, but lost softness. They may have spoken boldly, but missed the gentleness that silence taught you. No version of you gets everything. This does not dismiss the ache you feel. The ache is real because the potential is real. But the comparison is incomplete when you only look at what that other version gained, and not what they gave up to gain it. Think about a relationship you almost left sooner than you did. The version of you who left earlier may seem stronger. They avoided certain pain. They moved forward faster. But the version of you who stayed learned something from endurance. You developed patience, or compassion, or awareness of subtle emotional patterns. These qualities are not small. They shape how you relate to yourself and others now. Or think of a dream you postponed. The better you pursued it without fear. They might have succeeded in that timeline. But success does not arrive without cost. They faced failure earlier. They faced loneliness earlier. They were tested in ways you were not yet ready for. Your delay was not cowardice, it was pacing, a different form of preparation. Sometimes the shadow self is not better, only different. But because they feel close, the comparison feels inevitable. There is another layer to this shadow. Sometimes the version of you you call better is actually a version of you who avoided vulnerability. For example, the self who never apologized seems powerful. The self who always held the upper hand seems confident. The self who did not open their heart seems in control. But control does not equal strength. Sometimes the stronger self is simply the self who refused to feel pain. That version knows how to defend, but not how to connect. Your current self learned something that version never did. You can feel this distinction when you imagine speaking to the shadow self. The tone of the conversation tells you which qualities each of you holds. You may find that the self you envies something about you in return. They may envy your patience, your compassion, your ability to stay soft, your ability to slow down, your ability to care. Each version of you holds something valuable. The comparison hurts most when you believe your path is finished, when you believe you cannot still become something different. But you are not done. The potential that created the shadow self is still alive in you. It has not expired. It has not left. The shadow of the better you is not there to judge you. It is there to remind you of direction. It shows you where your longing points. Regret is not only about the past. Longing is not only about the future. Both are signals of alignment. They show what matters to you. Instead of asking, "Why am I not that version of myself?" you might ask, "What did that version of me choose that I want to choose now?" The answer will be small. It will not be dramatic. It will be something like, they rested, or they practiced, or they asked, or they trusted, or they let go sooner. The shadow self is not ahead of you. They are beside you. They are reachable. The difference between you and them is often one small habit repeated with care, one shift in posture, one conversation, one boundary, one act of honesty. The shadow is not a warning. It is an invitation. People often use the word random to describe events that do not make sense. A coincidence, a chance meeting, a loss, a sudden opportunity that seems to come from nowhere. Random becomes the word we use when we cannot see the structure behind something. But randomness does not mean lack of order. It means the pattern is larger than the part we are able to observe. When we look at the world closely, we see structure everywhere. At the microscopic scale, particles move according to probability fields. In weather systems, small changes in pressure can shift storms hundreds of miles. In human lives, one choice can alter years of direction. We call these things unpredictable, but unpredictability is not chaos. It is sensitivity. It is the result of systems with more variables than we can track. Life feels random when the cause and effect chain is too long for us to follow. Think of someone you meet who becomes important in your life. Maybe you met them because of a small change in a schedule, a delayed train, a last-minute decision to go somewhere you almost skipped. If one detail had shifted, the meeting would not have happened. It looks like randomness. But once the connection is formed, it does not feel accidental. It carries weight, emotional coherence, shared meaning. Something in you understands that your life and theirs were already moving in a direction that made the meeting possible. We call the meeting chance because we cannot map the network of events that led both of you there. The universe is full of events like this, moments that appear disconnected from anything before them, but make sense when seen from a wider view. The difficulty is that we rarely have that wider view. A many worlds idea proposes that every possible outcome of every moment exists. What we call randomness is often the point where multiple outcomes are close in probability. The chosen outcome is not arbitrary. It is the one the system leans toward based on its structure, even if we cannot see all the variables at work. Consider weather. Before modern forecasting, storms were surprises. They felt like acts of fate. Now we know they emerge from temperature, humidity, wind currents, ocean patterns, and seasonal cycles. None of these are random. The complexity makes the outcome appear unpredictable. But unpredictability is not disorder. It is depth. The same applies to personal experience. You might look back on your life and see the pattern in hindsight. You see how one conversation led to another. You see how leaving one situation created space for another. You see how an unexpected difficulty taught you something that shaped how you approached the next decision. The meaning becomes clear after time has passed. The universe laughs at certainty because certainty is a small lens. It relies on what we already know. But most of reality is built from what we do not yet understand. Randomness is that edge, the boundary between the familiar and the still forming. There are moments when something unexpected happens, and your first instinct is to call it meaningless. You may say, that was random, or that was strange, and move on. But if you look closely, you may notice a quiet coherence inside the event. You were in the right place for something to enter your life. Or you were in the wrong place, which revealed something you needed to learn. The moment carries shape, even if you cannot name it. Take, for example, the sudden memory that arrives without cause. You are washing dishes or walking down the street, and a specific moment from years ago appears in your mind. Not a dramatic memory, something small. The way someone looked at you, something you said that surprised you, a turning point that seemed minor at the time. The memory is not random. It arises because something in your present mirrors something in that past moment. Your mind is connecting patterns before you consciously do. Or consider when you wake from sleep with a feeling you cannot explain. You feel ready to forgive someone. Or you feel done with something that has been holding on. Or you know what to do next, even though nothing has changed during the night. The shift appears sudden, but the shift was building for months. The unconscious mind was processing information you were not aware of. The clarity now looks like magic, but it is simply the moment when a pattern becomes visible. Randomness is the part of the pattern you cannot yet see. There is also the experience of synchronicity, when two events occur close together in a way that feels meaningful, yet unconnected by direct cause. You think of someone and they contact you. You are searching for an answer, and a sentence in a book gives it to you. These events are often dismissed as coincidence, but coincidences have structure. They occur where meaning, attention, and timing converge. The convergence is not predicted, but it is not random. Your life is shaped by systems larger than your immediate awareness. Relationships, memory, emotional history, cultural patterns, physical environment, chance conditions, personal longing. These systems intersect constantly. The intersections look unpredictable when viewed from the inside, but from a higher perspective, they are interdependent. Certainty tries to reduce life to simple lines. One cause, one effect. But real experience is layered. Many influences contribute to a single outcome. When certainty encounters complexity, it fails. The universe does not operate according to the thin lines certainty draws. The universe operates through networks of possibility. This does not mean that nothing makes sense. It means meaning arrives in stages. We understand patterns gradually. We see shape after enough time passes. We recognize direction only after walking far enough to look back. The universe laughs at certainty because certainty closes the door to curiosity. Curiosity keeps the door open. The place where randomness appears is the place where discovery begins. Most of us are taught to imagine life as a single path. One timeline, one self, one unfolding sequence of choices leading forward. We look for direction the way someone looks at a map. By finding the center, the fixed point, the "you are here," the stable reference from which everything else can be understood. But if the many worlds view is true, there is no single center. Every moment branches. Every decision leads to multiple outcomes. Every version of you is as real as the one you identify with now. The map does not have one path. It has countless paths spreading outward, changing shape with every movement of thought, emotion, and action. This can feel overwhelming at first. Without a center, how do you locate yourself? How do you know which version of you is the real one? But the question only feels confusing if we assume identity needs to be singular to be stable. In reality, stability does not come from having only one path. It comes from understanding the relationship among many paths. You are not lost because there are many versions of you. You are located wherever your awareness is right now. Consider how you experience memory. When you think about your past, you do not replay events exactly as they occurred. You remember them from your current point of view. The memory shifts as you shift. The story changes depending on what matters to you at the time of remembering. The past is not a fixed location. It is a moving reference, shaped by the self who remembers it. This shows that identity is not stored in events, but in the meaning you give to them. If identity is meaning, then the center does not sit in time, it sits in attention. If you want to orient yourself in the multiverse, you do not ask, which version of me is correct? You ask, which version of me am I experiencing right now? The answer is always the same, the one you are aware of. Awareness is the anchor point. Imagine a traveler walking through a forest of paths. Each path is visible only when they look at it. The traveler does not need to see the entire forest to know where they are. They only need to know which path they are standing on. The other paths do not vanish because they are unseen. They remain as possibility, as alternate directions, as futures that could still unfold under different choices. Your life functions the same way. You stand at the point of now. Everything else extends outward. You can feel the presence of the other paths even if you cannot walk them. You feel them as what if, as longing, as relief, as regret, as curiosity. These feelings are not distractions from your life. They are signals that your identity spans more than one version of yourself. For example, you may remember a moment when you almost said something honest. You didn't say it, but you still think about it. The reason the moment remains is not because you failed. It remains because the version of you who spoke exists in another branch, and your awareness is brushing against that version. The intensity of the memory tells you how close the other path is. Or consider a dream that feels like a continuation rather than invention. You wake with the sense that you simply returned. This too is orientation. Your awareness shifted to another version of your life and then shifted back. You can think of it like stepping between rooms in the same house. There are some who feel disoriented when they consider many selves. They worry that without one fixed identity, they will dissolve, but you remain one self at a time. The multiplicity does not ask you to hold every version of yourself at once. It only asks you to recognize that identity is flexible, not singular. You can also understand orientation by observing emotional consistency. No matter what version of your life you imagine, there are certain values, patterns, and relational habits that stay constant. You might always move toward connection when you feel safe. You might withdraw when overwhelmed. You might protect others before protecting yourself. You might carry a certain tenderness or a certain guardedness. These are the stable structures of your identity. They remain across worlds because they formed early and deeply. The map has no center because the self has no final form, but it has shape. The shape is made of tendencies, beliefs, fears, desires, attachments, and the meanings you assign to experience. When you shift direction in life, these structures shift with you. They do not vanish, they adapt. The continuity is not in the external events of your life. It is in the internal way you move through them. Think of identity like a melody. The melody can be played in many keys, at many tempos, with many instruments, but the melodic pattern remains recognizable. Your many selves are variations of the same music. You orient yourself not by looking for the real version. You orient yourself by listening for the melody. When you feel lost, it is usually because you are trying to force your life to match a path you imagine you should be on. The disorientation comes from comparing your current expression to another version of yourself that exists in potential or memory. But you are not supposed to be on every path. You are on this one. That does not mean the others are gone. It means the others are reference points, not destinations. The map with no center does not require you to navigate every direction. It requires you to notice where you are standing. From where you stand, you can choose the next step. That is all orientation ever meant to be.